and the coast were already being protected.
With the port's growing importance, the federal government opened a harbor defense installation, Fort MacArthur.
The port and the fort go hand in hand. Well, the primary reason for coastal fortifications is because the major threat to any country's commerce was raiding shipping. And so in order to protect your harbors, being a vital place for shipping, you had to put fortifications around your harbors to protect them from marauding foreign countries that might want to do you harm. Well, they knew the harbor was going to be built, and then when it finally was completed, it was, you know, sort of, hey, let's get this place fortified soon because we're a sitting duck without any fortification. The main threat to Los Angeles Harbor were these giant battleships called dreadnoughts, and they had very large guns on them, 14 to 15-inch guns that could reach, you know, conceivably 20 miles. So Fort MacArthur had to have comparable armament to the battleships that existed at the time, which was basically four 14-inch what they called disappearing rifles, and these were essentially battleship guns that were designed to do battle with these armored dreadnoughts. The main armament of Fort MacArthur was situated in two batteries, Battery Osgood Farley and Battery Leary Merriam. At the time they were built, each was a separate battery. Later they joined them together and hyphenated the name. Basically consisted of two 14-inch disappearing rifles at both positions, one covering the southeast approach to the harbor, one protecting the northwest approach to the harbor. During the interwar years, President Roosevelt knew that the United States was going to get involved in World War II, so during the state of limited emergency, he built a series of barracks buildings topside, mess halls, things to accommodate a rapid growth in military numbers. And so our fort was actually prepared when World War II came around for a massive influx of troops. But despite all that preparedness, we still had more troops than we knew what to do with. For example, the peacetime garrison was about 1,800, and the wartime garrison in the spring of '42 was about 30,000. After the war, the main threat no longer was sort of ships at sea raiding your harbors, but it was more of an air attack. And so you had a primary focus of Fort MacArthur as an anti-aircraft position, starting out with guns, and then as the technology developed, they moved into the missile era, and that's when they used the Nike Ajax and Nike Hercules air defense systems. And again, Fort MacArthur became sort of the hub, or the headquarters, if you will, of the Los Angeles air defense system. Maybe something that is forgotten often is we drive home. I drive home across the bridges every day, and we look at this vast expanse of shipping containers and commerce going back and forth. And the thing I like people to remember is the fact that we are so successful commercially and the fact that we have such a good fort may in fact rest upon the fact that we had an excellent defense system throughout the 20th century to protect all of this investment. So for me, the port and the fort go hand in hand.
Former Mayor James Hahn recalls a favorite war story from his father, legendary LA County Supervisor Kenneth Hahn. Though he served at the Port of Los Angeles during World War II, Kenneth Hahn nearly saw action on the home front.
He said, well, you go to officer candidate school, and he went back to Notre Dame and was one of those 90-day wonders. So he was very excited about what his first commission would be. He comes out as an ensign, and they say, guess what, Kenny? You're going back to your hometown. You're going back to be a pilot at the San Pedro Harbor. And he thought, well, gee, that's not exactly what I thought I was going to do when I signed up to be in the war, but that's okay. My dad loved to tell this story that as you know, the Navy pilot, and of course we're in wartime, you know, everything was had to be top security, and so they would run up code flags on the vessel after the pilots would meet the ship outside the breakwater. And every day, I think the code book was changed, naturally for security reasons. And for some reason, my dad said he had the wrong day's code book, and he ran up the flags that he thought he was supposed to run up as he brought the ship in. And unfortunately, the flags that he ran up read, enemy ship approaching. And as he steamed into the channel with this Russian freighter, I think it was, he suddenly noticed the guns at Fort MacArthur were being trained on the vessel he was on, and alarms were going off, and he had no idea what was happening. And lucky for him, a friend of his who, a little more senior here at the port, a man named Baldo Kristovich, kind of knew my dad and knew he probably got things wrong from time to time. Said, "Hey, that's Ensign Hahn. That's Kenny on board. Stand down. This one's okay."
World War II changed the landscape of the Port of Los Angeles as it became a critical center for shipbuilding, employing over 90,000 people.
Shipbuilding was the economic engine of San Pedro throughout the war. It was hard work and paid well, and offered incredible opportunity. More importantly, it was part of the home front that helped win the war. Hundreds of new ships were built, as others were repaired and converted for wartime use.
There were so many people at that time had came off of the Depression days, and that was a good job for everybody. And why they hired a little old boy like me, I could never figure out.
I was the 108th man hired out of 55,000. See, these ships were built on an assembly line, and the plates came in from the steel mill, and then they were put in a warehouse. Every piece on the ship had a mark where it went. We had parts for 30 ships. We delivered almost a ship a day. I think 32 a month. We had a launching almost every night. See, we put the knives and forks and everything on the ship and put the crew on the ship before it left. And that would run about 26 days. But toward the end, we were making up the beds and everything. And then if everything worked good, they hoisted a new broom up on top of the mast, and meaning a clean sweep.
One of the ships built here at the Port of L.A. has come home again, the SS Lane Victory. Kids at the Port of L.A. hopped aboard to discover the role of a World War II victory ship.
Hello, I'm Maya Brown. Welcome to K-Pola, Kids at the Port of L.A. Today, we're going to board the SS Lane Victory, a World War II victory ship.
Hey guys, now I'm with Greg Williams, Executive Director and retired Merchant Marine.
Good afternoon and welcome aboard the SS Lane Victory. The SS Lane Victory was launched 70 years ago. This year will be the 70th birthday of the ship. The ship was a World War II civilian and merchant marine cargo ship, as opposed to the Iowa, which was a battleship. People don't understand what the soldiers needed to fight and win World War II. They needed toothpaste, they needed underwear, they needed socks, uniforms, boots, tanks, jeeps, planes. All of that stuff was delivered by civilian sailors of the Merchant Marine on ships just like this one. We had 16 million American soldiers fought in World War II. These ships carried 132 million tons of supplies in World War II.
Do you know who it's named after?
Yes, the ship is named after Isaac Lane. Isaac Lane was a slave, and upon emancipation, he taught himself to read and write. And then he became a bishop, and he founded Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. So the ship is actually named after Lane College, founded by Isaac Lane. It was built right over here on Terminal Island in 1945. So there were 467 of these ships built right here on Terminal Island in World War II.
To go to college and able to want to do this in your future, is there anything specialized that you should do?
I think it's a great profession. There are 7 maritime academies. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in, believe it or not, nautical science. And they teach you about meteorology, they teach you about cargo handling, they teach you how a ship is built and why a ship as a big chunk of steel doesn't sink to the bottom and why it, bounces around but stays afloat. So you learn all of those things. You learn how to handle a ship out in the middle of the ocean. You learn how to navigate by the stars and the sun. And so it's a great profession. You get to see the world and you're paid for it. Because remember, on a ship, you can't call the fire department, you can't call the police, you can't call the doctor. You have to take care of it yourself. You make your own food, you make your own water, you make your own electricity. So it's everybody comes together.
Is there any advice that you could give to younger people that want to do this?
I would give any high school student, follow your dreams, follow your passion. If you can find something that you're absolutely passionate about, it will never be work.
I'm here with the USS Iowa's Hal Puritz, who's offered to give me and you a special VIP tour of the ship. How you doing, Hal?
Very well.
So tell me a little bit about why the USS Iowa is here at the Port of Los Angeles.
There's a lot of history of battleships here in the San Pedro Bay Area. Back in 1920, the Pacific Fleet's battleships were all home ported right out here in the outer harbor.
Got it.
They stayed there up until just prior to being sent to Pearl Harbor. And we all know what happened to the ships when they were over there.
Right.
Now in the 80s, we also had battleships here in San Pedro Bay area, actually just across the in Terminal Island. The USS New Jersey and Missouri were both modernized and home ported throughout the 80s into the 90s.
And the New Jersey and the Missouri are similar to the Iowa, is that right?
They're both Iowa-class battleships, the same size of this ship, same capabilities.
Got it. Ah, the main deck of the USS Iowa. Hal, tell us a little bit about what makes this ship unique among battleships.
Well, the obvious is these large naval guns. These guns have a diameter, their bore diameter is 16 inches. These gun barrels are about 68 feet long. There's 3 guns in each turret. There's 3 turrets on board. Each gun weighs 292,000 pounds. This turret here weighs 2,000 tons just by itself. Wow. That's the weight of a World War II destroyer.
And just this turret alone.
Yeah, the gun house behind us, the guns, the whole works.
Wow.
And that's and there's 3 of them on board the ship.
The mighty new battleship Iowa has now joined the United States Navy in active duty. In pictures just released, made during the 45,000-ton warship's testing cruise, the Iowa's commander, Captain McCrae, orders her 9 16-inch guns to fire a mighty salvo.
This ship can travel 33 knots. That's about 40 miles per hour. This is the fastest battleship ever built.
The Iowa is the fastest
Iowa-class battleship. The Iowa and our sister ships, the New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, can travel 33 knots per hour.
Wow. Now, this is essentially the bullet that those guns fire, is that right?
Yes, this is one of 2 types of projectiles that we fire out of the gun. This is the smaller 19,000 pound.
This is the smaller one?
This is the smaller one. This is the 1,900 pound high-capacity explosive shell that's used for shore bombardment.
Okay.
And then behind it are the 6 bags of powder. Each bag weighs 110 pounds. It has smokeless powder in it. This will send this projectile 24 miles downrange. And at that maximum range, it takes 1.5 minutes from the time it leaves the muzzle till the time it hits the target.
This is airborne for 1.5 minutes?
That's correct.
And it weighs how much?
1,900 pounds.
See, I don't even think I could keep this off the ground for more than a second.
Well, with all this powder behind it, there's no problem getting it underway.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the Iowa's most famous roles was helping transport President Franklin Roosevelt to the historic 1943 Tehran Conference.
This is the captain's in-port cabin. This is a lot of history in this room. This is where President Roosevelt stayed in his journey across the Atlantic.
So he lived in this room?
Yes, this is the outer office in here. Right through that passageway, you're going to get a chance to see the living quarters that he used.
And this table here is where he would sit and meet with his advisors?
This is the table he met with all his top military leaders. This is actually one of our most popular attractions aboard the ship. This is the bathtub that was put in just for President Roosevelt. As you know, President Roosevelt had polio when he was in a wheelchair and couldn't stand. So they made several modifications to the ship. This is the one modification that is still on board today. They took the shower out and put a bathtub in its place just for President Roosevelt.
One of the benefits to being a VIP like we are is that Hal has taken us off route to one of the secret areas of the ship. Hal, where exactly are we?
We're on the 3rd deck. This passageway is known as Broadway. It's 256 feet long. There are 9 bulkheads that have watertight doors that can be closed in case of flooding or battle damage. And this is where all the critical infrastructure of the ship is located. We have our engine rooms here, our evaporators, our fire rooms, our generators. Anything really important to keep the ship moving and is it down in this location right here.
So this is the bridge?
Yes, it is.
Now, I see the captain's chair, but I do not see the actual wheel. How does he steer the ship?
That's because we have the wheel behind 17 inches of armor in this armored conning tower that you see right here. This inside there would be the helmsman, the lee helmsman. These are the men that are actually steering the ship, sending the signals to the engine room on how fast to go. They get their direction from out here, and they control the ship from in there. And when the ship goes into general quarters or battle stations, the captain or whoever else needs to be in there with them will also go in there, and they'll close this 4,000-pound door behind them, and they're as safe as you can be on the ship. Okay, we're passing through the 17 inches of armor.
Yep, that looks about 17 inches. And this must be the helm.
You're correct.
And this must be the wheel.
That's the wheel.
I have an eye for that kind of thing.
Good catch.
So, how does the helmsman see where he's going? There are no windows.
Well, the helmsman doesn't have to look out the window. All he's concerned about is his gyro compass repeater and keeping the ship on whatever course he's been given, either by the captain or whoever the officer in charge is out on the bridge.
So he's counting on the officer in charge out there to give him instructions, and he just listens and...
Correct. He's getting that order and watching his compass repeater and just keeping the ship on that course, whatever it was.
Got it. Hal, I'd like to thank you again for our VIP tour of the USS Iowa here at the Port of Los Angeles. Now remember, this has just been a small taste of everything there is to see here on the ship and everything there will be to see in the coming months and years. So come on down to Berth 87 at the Port of Los Angeles and take your own tour of the USS Iowa. Who knows, maybe you'll even meet Hal here. Thanks again, Hal.
You're welcome, Andrew.
Today, the Port of Los Angeles is the busiest container port in the United States, spreading over 7,500 acres of land and water. Though it's one of the most technologically advanced ports in the world, it still pays tribute to its long and proud history.
At Battleship Iowa, I'm Andrew Tarr for Portfolio.
I'm standing here in San Pedro at the Red Car Railroad Station. This is a classic train dating back many, many years, and it's a real tourist attraction here in San Pedro. So come with me as we find out more about the history of the classic Red Car. We're standing by one of the classic red cars in San Pedro, and we're talking to the gentleman behind all this magic, Bob Henry. Bob, tell us what you... well, tell us a little bit about this car, first of all.
Okay, you're standing in front of car 500, which is a replica of a Pacific Electric 500 back in the 1920s, 1930s. It's one of two of the replicas we have running, 500 and 501. 501 right now is actually out on the tracks. We're now in our maintenance facility with 500.
Originally, LA was a network of red cars and everything. These cars, are they a replica of that?
Yeah, these are precise replicas. What we had examples of the old cars out at the Orange Empire Railway Museum in Paris, California. They have the real cars out there, and we were able to send our maintenance people and our constructors out to look at the cars and replicate them exactly. So when you get on this car, you're actually getting on a car that would be in the 1920s.
When you were rebuilding them, did you have any sort of set of rules, as it were, for the people that actually did the building?
Well, what we had is we had people who worked at the port. The craftsmen at the port were actually finished carpenters. And if you get on the cars, you'll see a magnificent woodwork. And all that woodwork is done by our carpenters, including the boot at the end is all steam-bent wood. All the woodwork inside is all mahogany. The seats are all ash. And we had one person whose only job was to go to the lumberyard and pick out the lumber and match it all.
What about the people who run this, the driver and the conductor? Was it hard or challenged to find the right sort of person?
Well, that's a contractor. That's Herzog Transit Services. They're a division of Herzog Company, and they do this around the country. They have another line up in California. This is kind of, I call it their toy department here, but they have commuter lines in Texas and California. We have two people on the car, and it could be more economic.
Tuesday, December 1st. I want to welcome all of you to your Los Angeles City Council. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. The public is welcome. Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfeld, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Caress, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, West, and 11 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Koretz moves, Blumenfield seconds. Next.
Committee resolutions for approval.
I believe it's Mr. Krikorian moves and Martinez seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday. Now be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, if we could all rise. Be led in the flag salute by Ms. Martinez.
Please rise. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Madam Clerk, let's go through the agenda.
Items 1 and 2 are items noticed for public hearing. There's a request to continue items 1E to January 12th and items 1M and O to December 15th.
Okay, so without objection, that'll be the order. Continue.
There's cards on item 1. If you council can vote on item 2.
Okay, then let's prepare to vote on item 2. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, let's move on to the next section.
Items 3 through 25 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, 3 through 25 members specials. Mr. Buscaino.
Item 14, please.
We'll hold 14 for Mr. Buscaino. Any other specials? Then let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, let's continue.
Items 26 through 46 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Cards?
Cards on items 26, 27, 28, 30, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 40, 43, and 44.
Okay, let's hold those items and vote on what's remaining. Mr. Koretz. Okay, let's vote on what's remaining. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Continue.
Item 47 is a closed session item. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
I will defer to Mr. Krikorian. Well, what we can do, why don't I hold it for a moment? Mr. Krikorian.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Sorry for the delay on that. Item 47 should be considered in closed session. It should be brief, but it will need to be in closed session.
All right. That brings us where?
Mr. President, that brings council to presentations or items called special.
Let's go to item 26. Ms. Ramirez.
One moment. God damn. Excuse me. I would hope that Mrs. Rebecca Ninberg, to the Fire Commission, on her appointment, will consider the importance of Medivac and fire department pilots. Not much is given attention to, not much attention or rewards or recommendations are being given to these pilots. These pilots do a phenomenal job. Again, Medivac, where they airlift and transport a lot of victims and patients or injured pedestrians. So we must acknowledge the importance of these pilots, as well as our LAPD, fire department pilots, and all the other entrepreneur and media pilots. Again, it is important that this individual, Ninberg, who will be appointed to this commission, also uphold the highest degree of standards, civility, order, and integrity and ethics for this department. And may she definitely improve the standards of the city and the fire department, especially the paramedics. Boy, most of them suck. Having said that, I would also ask you, please, let's give tribute and credit to these pilots who bust their butts night and day. It is not easy. Yeah, we're staying on the subject. Those pilots are hot, kick-ass mothers. They're great.
Stay on the subject.
Yes, understood. So again, fire department does a wonderful job both out in the line of duty when it comes to fires, as well as the city. And God knows the city is in dire fire. We need help here. And the fire department is about the only one who can really do a great job here. So, Mrs. Ninberg, your hands are full. Do a great job for these pilots. Give them all the credit that they deserve. And throw them a wonderful Christmas party and a high check. And a wonderful... they deserve a nice vacation. All expenses paid by the council members and the city attorney. Thank you.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
We're going to go to item 27, Mr. Murphy, Sean Murphy.
Yes, good morning. Item 27, it's a good item.
Thank you. Let us prepare to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Ms. Ramirez, please come back to the podium. We're going to do item 33.
Thank you. In part, no, I do not approve. You have too many League of City conferences, summits, expositions, etc. One is enough. We can add 1 week for victims of gang stalking and have all politicals walk and count homeless victims of crime and do a report to include actions taken to help mediate and remedy the problems that we face here in Los Angeles. So again, no to all those League City vacations. And it's too many. It's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. We got business to take care of at the city, and God knows we need help here. So I reserve my time, and God bless Donald Trump. He kicks ass.
No, you're
God
off
bless
the
Donald
subject.
Trump.
Thank you very much. Let us prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Ms. Ramirez, I shouldn't have let you go back. Come, item 37.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the... Thank you. Is this nonprofit organization, Motor for Toys charity, car show toy, and drive in compliance and not skimming money from the donors or committing fraud? Are we sincerely hopeful? We sincerely hope that the first and foremost, that these charities, nonprofit toy charities, are tending to the United States military families and their children, along with legal law-abiding children, not wetbacks or gang-banging pussies and thieves who commit most of the crimes. So again, I would hope that we check these charities and these nonprofit organizations, that they truly are in compliance with all federal, state, and city laws, that they're not skimming money, that they're not pocketing the money, and that they're not committing fraud to the taxpayers. Again, investigate every one of them and make sure that they donate to the children of American citizens. No wetbacks and no gangbangers, but to military families first and foremost, and then legal law-abiding citizens.
And that is what we demand of the city. We are going to hold the city accountable. No more supplying and subsidizing these wetbacks or gangbangers. We must take care of city business, and that means checking all these nonprofit bogus organizations who are sucking money from those who are vulnerable, who are wanting to give to these organizations to help those military families and those homeless, impoverished military families and their children, first and foremost, and then legal law-abiding citizens. Again, no wetbacks and no gangbangers.
You're off the subject. Thank you, Ms.
And Donald
Ramirez.
Trump will certainly help us
Thank
with all
you.
that.
Okay, let's prepare. Let us prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Item 43, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. These are 5 special, this is item 43, 5, this is for Koretz and O'Farrell, 5 special receptions for the personnel department in City Hall. What's $145 a piece. Now, instead of these receptions, anybody out there, they could fix the sidewalk in front of your home for $145. And incidentally, people, we had triggered a fire alarm, one of these special receptions. And, of course, people bring alcohol and pour it into the punch. So if you want to vote for these people so they can get drunk, Koretz and O'Farrell, and 5, 10, 1,000 special receptions. HollywoodHighlands.org. 1 minute.
Mr. Walsh, don't go back to your seat. I'm going to call you. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Item 44, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential. This is the use of a mobile stage for the Midnight Mission for its Thanksgiving Day event. You know, I guess $696, you could have gotten a mobile station, rented one for a lot less than that, but you went to a politically connected contractor. The mobile stage wasn't eaten or slept on. That's all the Midnight Mission should be doing. Things that encourage food and shelter. We don't need a mobile stage with $696, the money which could have been spent on something like repairing the crappy sidewalks in front of our houses. But 700 here, 700 there, it adds up. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. Koretz, why don't we move to item 28? Did you want to open or go directly to public comment?
I'll open briefly. Good morning, colleagues. As you know, big corporations and super wealthy special interests are tirelessly working to rewrite the rules that protect workers who join unions that provide families with good jobs and worthy wages. At a time when the gap between rich and poor continues to widen, union membership is what gives working families a fair shot at achieving their means to thrive. Unfortunately, union membership is once again under assault. The Friedrichs versus CTA case taken up by the U.S. Supreme Court aims to restrict the rights of teachers, firefighters, police officers, nurses, and others who serve the public to have a say in their wages, working conditions, and how they protect our communities. Friedrichs versus CTA is the latest and most vicious attack on working families and their right to be union members. These wealthy special interests don't want anyone to stand in the way of their ability to game the system, leaving the rest of us to pick up the tab for schools, elder care, and safe streets. And here in Los Angeles, our city's been the beacon of opportunity for everyday Angelenos who want to be able to find good-paying union jobs and earn the means to raise a family. And while it gets harder and harder for families to find jobs that aren't paying poverty wages, our city has played a key role in helping raise up strong communities with good employment opportunities. And we've seen that when our workers have a voice at the table and are empowered to be our partners, our city is able to provide and deliver better services across departments and across the board. Colleagues, this dangerous court case threatens the excellent partnership we've built with our city workers and their unions. And Mr. President, I'd like to open up this matter to a brief public hearing so we can hear from the union members and leaders who have the most to lose in this fight.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Elena Medina, Cheryl Parisi, and Glenda Valdez, please come forward. Good to see you.
Good morning. My name's Elena Medina, and I'm an Assistant General Counsel for the Service Employees International Union. I urge you to stand with Los Angeles working families by adopting this important resolution. Friedrichs is a lawsuit funded by special interest groups to limit the power of workers to join together and pool resources in union, and to infringe on public employers' ability to effectively and efficiently manage their workforces. If the plaintiffs prevail in this lawsuit, it will radically upend 40 years of well-settled public sector labor relations law and destabilize a multitude of CBAs that implicate the city's interests. It could divert critical resources needed for crucial public services to renegotiating contracts, defending against copycat lawsuits, and preventing labor strife. Strong labor management partnerships are the backbone to the multitude of public services provided to the millions of citizens and residents of the city. There's substantial evidence that when workers and employers work together, the result is better, more cost-effective public services for our communities. That's why a diverse cross-section of public sector employers, including dozens of municipalities and elected officials from Honolulu to Boston and Fairbanks to Louisville, joined together in support of working families. They were joined along with 22 states in the District of Columbia, over a dozen school districts, and two of the largest public hospital systems in the country in joining together in support of the unions in this lawsuit. The U.S. government also supports the union's position in this lawsuit. Indeed, 48 Republican state legislators filed a brief in support of the unions and in support of worker power. When workers and unions thrive, communities thrive. Therefore, we ask you to adopt this resolution and stand together with working families in support of worker power. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Parisi.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Cheryl Parisi. I'm the Executive Director of AFSCME District Council 36. We thank you for considering this important resolution today. The right to form unions, the right to form unions that are strong and stable is fundamental to the success of working people in this country. As Councilman Koretz correctly noted, this effort, the case of Friedrichs versus CTA, is an effort funded by special interests, interested in undermining decades of settled labor law. Specifically, here in the city of Los Angeles, under the administration of Mayor Tom Bradley in the early 1980s, the city of Los Angeles entered into agency fee agreements with virtually all of its labor unions. The result of over 30 years of labor stability in the city of Los Angeles has led to the capacity for true partnerships, has led to the capacity to lift workers out of poverty-level wages in the early 1980s under that administration through policies such as pay equity and comparable worth, the living wage ordinances, the recent adoption of the $15 minimum wage in the city of Los Angeles, all of these important policies would not have been effective, would not have been implemented had it not been for the strength and stability of Los Angeles labor. And so we fully recommend and appreciate your support of the continuation of longstanding labor law. Thank you.
Ms. Valdez, please come forward.
Good morning, members of the council. Gilda Valdez, I'm the Chief of Staff for SEIU Local 7-1, and I'm here to speak in favor of the motion. I think that many of you probably know that public sector unions is what's holding up the labor movement. This is no coincidence. The fact that they are attacking public sector workers this way is because they're not out to hurt us. They're out to annihilate us. They want working people to be completely silenced once and for all. So for us, this is no joke. I've been talking about this for over a year, and what we need right now is to make sure that we can protect all the hard work of working people in this country. We cannot become Wisconsin when one day we wake up and we have no more bargaining rights and no ability to organize workers. I urge you to vote yes in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, let's prepare to vote. Let us open the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Koretz, did you?
I just want to make clear that we are, by this action, joining the amicus brief on this case. It's absolutely critical, as we all realize. We've set some standards in terms of our support for our employees and employees across the city with our minimum wage, our actions on wage theft, and this is just another key step in the right direction. This could be the most important labor-related case that comes before the state Supreme Court in many years. So it's absolutely critical that we succeed, and I ask your aye vote.
Okay, thank you. Let's prepare to vote, members. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, I want to quickly go to item 40. Mr. Walsh. Item 40, John Walsh.
John Walsh, minute 3, HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. The item is number 40, street banners announcing the Port of Los Angeles events from January 16th to December 16th. We don't know how much this cost. It's not here. I understand it's something close to $9,500 for street banners. But we should put them up for Braille, shouldn't we, for blind people? How about Portuguese people? We should have 100 different languages banners. Or we should take the street banners, fold them 4 ways, and shove all of them up the city council's asshole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. Do we have any other speakers? I don't believe so. So with that, no other speakers on the queue. We'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you very much. Now we have a very special presentation from Councilmember Gilbert Cedillo.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a special day, a really historic day in the global fight against AIDS. December 1st is World AIDS Day, and each year our communities gather. 34 million people are living with the virus, and despite the virus being identified in 1984, more than 35 million people have died of HIV or AIDS, making it one of the most destructive pandemics in the history of the world. Today, scientific advances have made HIV treatment, and living with HIV more of a common condition. The disease has been with us for 30 years, and in those 30 years we have lost many, many loved ones. The nation's first comprehensive national HIV/AIDS strategy for the United States was released in 2010, and in the subsequent 5 years, people and organizations have joined together around this vision and around this strategy. The strategy has changed the way the American people talk about HIV/AIDS, has set priorities, and has organized prevention and care services locally, and the delivery through our clinics and non-clinical services that support people living with HIV/AIDS. This has been one of the many lessons earned through the 2010 National HIV/AIDS Strategy for the United States. The updated plan incorporates the scientific advances that could one day bring the United States and the world closer to virtually eliminating new HIV infections, supporting all people living with HIV, and leading long, healthy lives, eliminating the disparities that persist. Members, this is World AIDS Day, and this is a day that has special meaning for all of us. Special meaning for all of us because each and every one of us knows that of someone who has passed away from this insidious disease. I'm very proud that in my district we have something called the Wall Las Memorias. And the Wall Las Memorias was an idea that was brought to me by its executive director and visionary, Richard Zaldivar. I was a union leader at Local 660 when one late evening I looked at a notice that had come in, and I called him up after hours, and he was at his office, as he is routinely, working on building the Wall Las Memorias. I was blessed and fortunate to be able, as a state legislator, to offer the largest funding for the Wall Las Memorias, and I'm proud that it sits in Lincoln Park in my district. It is the only publicly funded World AIDS monument in the Western Hemisphere, and we're very proud of it. It's a site of destination for many people who come visiting our city throughout the world, and I'm proud that it is there in my district. Today we have with us Richard Rosales, the City AIDS Coordinator, to tell us a bit more about the infection rates and medical breakthroughs. And Richard could not be with us today. He's at UTEP, or University of Texas, giving a talk on World AIDS Day, but representing us today is Andres Magana. You can hear from them now.
Andres?
Either one,
all right.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm Ricky Rosales. I am the City AIDS Coordinator. Here in the city of Los Angeles, gay and bisexual men represent 95% of all HIV and AIDS diagnoses. Among women infected, 49% are Hispanic or Latino, and 35% are Black. HIV continues to disproportionately impact people of color, who represent 75% of all people infected with HIV. The Hollywood area represents the highest concentration of persons living with HIV and AIDS in the entire city. And of all people living with HIV and AIDS in LA County, half reside within the city of Los Angeles. The number of new infections have stabilized over the last couple of years, but the demographics of those newly infected have moved from individuals in their 30s and 40s to young people 16 to 26. Young gay and bisexual men of color, African American, and Latinos account for a growing number of new infections. The theme for this World AIDS Day is Think Positive, Rethink HIV. The AIDS Coordinator's Office and the City Council have long embraced this philosophy. Throughout the years, the city has been on the forefront of HIV prevention programming, research, and initiatives, as well as HIV prevention, as well as protections for people living with HIV. We were the first city in the nation to adopt a non-discrimination policy to protect people living with or suspected of living with HIV and AIDS from discrimination in city employment. We launched a testing initiative and funded routine opt-out HIV testing before other entities, including the county, were on board with the idea. We've also been a local leader in supporting syringe access, which makes up for a lack of federal funding for syringe exchange programs. We continue to participate in local, statewide, and national planning bodies, offering innovative strategies to end the HIV epidemic. As leaders in the city and the country, we pride ourselves on innovation and the use of novel strategies to research HIV-related issues or conduct HIV prevention programming. Some highlights include syringe collection services that remove used syringes, linking injection drug users to treatment, HIV, and STI testing, transgender services that include economic empowerment, such as job training and resume building, and providing health education in jails and prisons, and of course services for all women, including those engaged in sex work, to offer information and resources to reduce the risk of contracting HIV and other STDs. Our innovative research projects have included assessing HIV knowledge among risk among gang members, biomedical interventions, and risk factors associated with the use of social networking apps. Our prevention programs exceed their targets annually. Syringe collection and disposal providers see approximately 800 unique individuals every year and remove 1.3 million dirty syringes from the streets. We serve over 5,000 homeless clients. We tested around 21,000 people last year. 700 veterans accessed our programs. And in total, we served 30,000 individuals in 2014-2015. But we can't do this alone. The ACO relies on working relationships with dozens of Los Angeles' community-based organizations and support from city departments, the mayor's office, and of course the city council members and their offices to plan and implement our HIV prevention efforts. As we look to the future, we see that traditional HIV prevention continues to evolve. We must support and expand biomedical prevention access and education, programs like post-exposure prophylaxis and pre-exposure prophylaxis, and support testing, linkage to care, treatment and adherence to HIV medications for those that are infected, or better known as treatment as prevention. Economic empowerment programs are the cornerstone of HIV prevention efforts and must continue to be supported. Specifically, my office is collaborating with the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and Gender Justice LA to apply for funding for the city's first transmasculine health study to assess HIV risk and protected factors among trans men in the city. This will be part of the hashtag TMHealthLA campaign, also the first of its kind in Los Angeles and in the region. And finally, if our budget request is successful, we'll launch a youth health educator certification program, which gives young people job training and placement into internships in the health field. We will continue to host engaging events on issues that intersect with HIV, from race and aging to violence and poverty. Lastly, as a city that is home to the second largest urban Indian population in the country, we'll conduct a research project on Native Americans' trauma and HIV. The AIDS Coordinator's Office has been committed to supporting and implementing programs that prevent the transmission or acquisition of HIV since 1989, and has done so by thinking ahead and out of the box. We look forward to continuing that legacy as we get closer to a day when HIV infections are rare and people living with HIV receive quality care and treatment and are able to lead healthy and empowered lives. And finally, please join us tonight for the city's World AIDS Day commemoration at 5:30 at the Mark Taper Auditorium right here in the Central Library. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Andres Magana. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Wallace Memorias Project. Year in and year out, we come together as a community to pay tribute to the lives of our loved ones who have died of AIDS. Families and friends and the community at large gather on this special night every year to remember and to reflect to this epidemic. While fear and often sadness haunt our community as a result of our loss, for many of us, this evening of solitude serves as an anchor of hope that we may one day put an end to this disease. Today we gather as a large family, as many towns and communities gather throughout the world, to reflect on the human devastation that AIDS has created and to recommit to lowering the rate of HIV. I'd like to now thank Councilmember Gil Cedillo. It is such an honor for the Wallace Memorias Project to be recognized today, not only because today is World AIDS Day, but because today marks the 22nd anniversary of our organization, which you've been a part of literally since day one. So thank you. We can't stress how important it is for our community and for the movement to have support from advocates like yourself and other members of the council. On behalf of the organization and its membership, thank you.
Thank you. So, is this which one? This? Art?
A little more. Well, let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for the dedicated work and everything you've done as well. Colleagues, I'm not sure, but I do recognize some future leaders that just walked in the back. It looks like we've got a school possibly visiting. Can we get a shout out of what school is here, and let's give them some recognition as well? Teachers, parents. I'm sorry, come on up. Come on up to the podium for a second so we can hear you. Come on, so send one of the kids up to tell us who you are. All right, let us know who you are.
Hello, my name is Jake.
And you are from, you're representing the whole group, so you're going to tell us where you're from.
We're CWC. Oh. We're from CWC. Our school is like a lot of schools, but bad cafeteria food, lots of stuff.
What does CWC stand for?
Citizens of the world. 4 letters. You should understand that by now.
Fantastic. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Those are truly the citizens of the world. There's no doubt.
Is he?
And I'd like Councilmember Bonin to speak to the citizens of the world.
Because they're from my district, they're from Mar Vista, I want to give them a special welcome here. I'm actually going to be meeting with them, and they're going to be interviewing me in a little bit, so I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for being here today.
I want to say something. Excuse me?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jake Sharman.
All right, citizens of the world. Fantastic.
Is that what you said?
Thank you very, very much. All right, colleagues, we're going to take item 1. We've got 2 cards on item 1, Andre Rabibo and John Walsh. Andre? 1G.
And Mr. President, for item 1G, there is a request to continue that item to January 12th, 2016.
All right, we'll go ahead and continue that.
And also there is a request to continue items 1I and J to December 15th.
All right, that'll be the order without objection. Thank you very much. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Because of our constant focus on this type of lien activity, I can assure you that if you have a lien and you come down here and sign up to speak, it will be postponed, it will be a continuance, and your lien will be reduced by at least 50%. If you're foolish enough not to come down here and pay the exorbitant lien, shame on you. The city has, and believe me, you hear people come up here and complain about the liens, and they say, talk to the aide, the deputy, and come back in 2 weeks. You know why they never come back? Because the lien is either forgiven or reduced by 50%. They're not going to tell you that. Mr. Rue's not going to tell you that. He's on the other side. HollywoodHighlands.org.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes public comment on this item. So we're going to go ahead and hold 1Q on the desk and vote on the remaining balance of those items under 1. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, we're going to take one more item before we jump over to item 34. 38, called Special for Cards. Antonia, followed by John. Oh, she's out of time. Never mind. John Walsh? Oh, you're out of time, ma'am. Thank you very much. John Walsh?
And Mr. President, as he's coming, a substitute motion for item 38 has been circulated.
Great, thank you very much.
John Walsh at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is a Housing Committee report concerning 27 housing assets. This is on 4th Street is a request for qualifications on options for uses of this property best suited to meet the needs of the community. This is an attempt to sneak something in here so they can change the zoning, so they can ruin the neighborhood. And I guess I am told what they need, what this is for, is another liquor store. Because, you know, as Mr. Bonin has said, we don't have enough, and as Mr. Rue agrees, we don't have enough places in this city to buy alcohol. You goddamn scumbags, Rue.
All right. I'm glad the children of the world already left. All right, with that, we'll go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Weezer.
After this item, I would like to reconsider something after we vote on this.
You got it. Well, first we're going to vote on the whether to consider the substitute that's been circulated, so we'll go ahead and open the roll on that item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Now we'll go ahead and actually vote on the substitute, but before we do that, Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I request that we reconsider item 1C and continue it for 2 weeks, please?
Okay, before we open the roll on that current one before us, we'll go ahead and reconsider your vote. Well, let's go ahead and finish this one first, since we already have it on the queue. So we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll.
That's 38.
Tabulate the vote. Now we'll
15
take
ayes.
Mr. Huizar's reconsideration.
And Mr. President, there's also a request to reconsider item 1N.
Okay, we'll take both of those together for reconsideration. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, and then there's a request to consider Mr. Huizar's for, did you say 1 week, sir? 2 weeks without objection. That'll be the order. And the other one that we
1N also for 2 weeks.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you very much. Now we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Councilmember Wesson.
Okay, Madam Clerk and members, we're going to move to item 34. I'd like to call on Mr. Englander. And how would you like to proceed on this item?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think what I'll do here is let me just go ahead and open it up so I can frame what's before us and what's occurred. And then what I'll do is I'll have a number of different regulatory agencies and the gas company come join us for their input and what's been going on as well, and follow that up with conversation and dialogue in terms of public comment from the members that are here today as well. So if we could do that. Colleagues, on October 23rd, a gas leak occurred at the Aliso Canyon Natural Gas Storage Facility in the unincorporated Los Angeles County. I first heard about this leak when residents began calling my office and complaining about the strong gas smell, which was later reported on the news. Not as I would hoped for. They should have notified us directly. We were not notified by Sempra or the gas company officials. Since that time, residents in the adjacent Porter Ranch community have been plagued by headaches, nausea, and nosebleeds, greatly affecting their quality of life. And the damage goes far beyond the immediate neighbors. The leak has released a huge amount of methane, the primary component of natural gas, and a potent heat-trapping compound that accelerates climate change. State air quality regulators, in fact, estimate that this leak is equivalent to 25% of the entire state of California's daily methane emissions. That's roughly the same effect of driving 160,000 cars for a year. County public health officials were notified of the leak on October 28th, 5 days after the initial exposure, but it wasn't until Friday, November 20th, that health officials stated that the exposure to mercaptans, the substance used to add odor to natural gas, caused short-term neurological, gastrointestinal, and respiratory symptoms, and ordered that SoCal Gas Company relocate residents that requested it. The first reports from the gas company officials optimistically predicted the resolution of the leak within a 3-day period. As the days passed, it became apparent that the usual measures would be inadequate to stop the leak. Though the gas company did eventually notify officials and the various regulatory agencies, information was not disseminated to community members in a clear or immediate way. In fact, our own request to get the proper phone numbers and contacts directly at the county public health was met with several different answers before we could establish the proper entities. This crisis has now reached the 40-day mark, colleagues. After close to 1,000 calls to the Air Quality Management District, the gas leak at Aliso Canyon still flows, unabated, with timelines for resolution ranging from 2 to 3 months and well beyond that. As of today, 200 families have been relocated. Another 500 are in the process, removing families away from their homes, voluntarily or otherwise, and removing children from their neighborhood schools is simply intolerable. Still, there is no end in sight, and we're now told that it's likely 3 months before any resolution. The community is frightened for their health and for their safety, with concerns over the stated short-term health effects and possible long-term risks. They wonder if their homes are an added risk of fire during an already high fire season and an already high fire severity zone. It was only a few years ago during the Cessnon fire that we had to evacuate this entire neighborhood. Now, because of the lack of rain and drought, we have new fuel and high brush, making this another potential catastrophic event for this community. As a public official, we need answers. I need answers about where the failures were that led to this leak, why information was so slow to be shared with the public and indeed myself, including the health risks, what will be done to solve this problem, including a timeline, and what will be done to prevent future leaks and ensure the safety of this community in which this facility is located. Instead of keeping all of the affected parties in the communication loop, this has been a lackluster outreach attempt of patchwork efforts, resulting in a massive failure of communication during this crisis, leading ultimately to the hearing we're having today. So with that, I'd like to take a moment to ask our panelists to take their seats around the horseshoe in front of us. And let's have our guests from SoCal Gas sit in the middle, please. And I'd also ask the representatives from DOGGR, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, the LA County Public Health, LA County Fire Department, Los Angeles Fire Department, SoCal Air Quality Management District, Hazmat EMD, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and LAUSD representatives to please come forward. Sir. Thank you. Before we jump in and go around the table to introduce yourselves and share where you're from, we're going to get into a laundry list of questions and look for some answers as well on this. I want everybody to know that I know now that this is all hands on deck, and I appreciate that. It's been 40 days, and I know a lot has been coming out since day one on this, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of that. But I also want to know many things that we need to share. Where the communication breakdown from the beginning in this process between the public and the involved agencies began. I want to know everything possible of what's being done to resolve this prolonged crisis. I have questions about how information is being distributed and the accuracy of the data being offered to the public. I want to know why SoCal Gas thought this could be contained in 3 days, and now it appears we're looking at months. I want to know if we're examining all the possible health risks to the leak. And so with that, first, I'd like, if we could, just go around the table and we'll start on the other end here and just state your name and who you are and what agency you're with, please, and then we'll go into questions and answers. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Torres. I'm with the Office of Environmental Health and Safety with LA Unified School District.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mohsen Nazemi. I'm Deputy Executive Officer for South Coast Air Quality Management District.
Good morning. My name is John Groch. I'm the Chief Deputy for the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources.
My name is Steve Boland. I'm the State Oil and Gas Supervisor and the head of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources.
I'm Jimmy Cho, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Gas Operations and System Integrity for SoCalGas.
I'm Dennis Ariola, the President and CEO of SoCalGas.
I'm Gillian Wright. I'm Vice President of Customer Service for SoCalGas.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Cyrus Rank, and I'm a medical toxicologist with the Environmental Health Division at LA County Public Health.
Good morning. Angelo Bellomo, Deputy Director for Health Protection, LA County Department of Public Health.
Good morning. Bill Jones, Chief of the Health Hazmat Division, LA County Fire Department.
Good morning. Greg Heisel, Assistant Fire Chief, Los Angeles County Fire Department.
Morning, council members. My name is Greg Rayner. I'm an Assistant Chief with the City Fire Department assigned to the Valley Bureau.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. If we could, first, I'd like SoCalGas to take us back to what happened on the 23rd and bringing us to where we're at today. We'll get into a lot of the details so you can keep it brief, but I know it's been out there, certainly covered by the media, but I want to share it here publicly as well as before we get into a lot of the very specific, detailed questions. So if we can begin there and when the leak was discovered and what steps are being taken now to mitigate that.
Council member, this is Dennis Ariola. If it's okay with you, I would love to have some opening comments because I think it'll put in context what your questions are. And I think with my colleagues, we'll be able to address a lot of those. And I think it'll be more informative as we go forward. So if that's okay with you.
Great, please. Thank you.
Well, again, good morning, Council President and Council members. I am Dennis Ariola, the President and CEO of SoCalGas. And my colleagues and I do appreciate this opportunity to update you on this truly unfortunate situation. SoCalGas has proudly served our customers and our communities with safe and reliable natural gas for over 140 years. But unfortunately, this is not one of our prouder moments. So first, I want to apologize on behalf of SoCalGas for the concern, the discomfort, the inconvenience, the frustration, the confusion, and the bad smell caused by the natural gas leak at Aliso Canyon Storage Facility. We know that this incident has impacted so many people and their families, especially those living in Porter Ranch community. This leak has caused families to make choices regarding where they should stay and how they should get their kids to school. We know that some people have had some reactions to the odorant we add to the natural gas to make it safe. No one should have to go through these disruptions and these experiences. But I also want to say personally, I'm sorry. To the residents of Porter Ranch, I'm sorry because although we worked hard to try and communicate with you what was going on to provide you accurate and timely information, we fell short. We fell short of your expectations and, quite frankly, ours as well. The results of our efforts just weren't as effective as we had planned and intended. And for that shortcoming, the buck stops with me as the leader of SoCalGas. And so today, with my colleagues, we'd like to provide you an update and answer your questions on where we stand with the gas leak and our efforts and our plans to stop the gas leak as safely and as quickly as possible. And we'd also like to announce several additional steps we'll be taking in the coming days and weeks to help support the Porter Ranch community throughout this process. We know that working hard and good intentions are not good enough, but we need to be effective in our plans and deliver results to those that are most impacted and do it quickly. And I'm confident with what we've got planned and the resources we have in place and the support that we're getting from the agencies around the table and those that aren't here, that we can do that going forward. Now, over the last month, we've been working with a team of experts as well as the state, county, and city agencies to stem the flow of gas. Those steps have included traditional industry methods of pumping fluids into the impacted well to overcome the gas pressure coming up from the well. It's also included reservoir pressure management techniques and strategies to reduce the amount of odorant reaching the community. We've also been working closely with the agencies especially the state's Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, known as DOGGR, to get the approvals and permits necessary to do all this work, including the preparation of a well site. And based on the most recent attempts to stop the leak from the surface using the traditional methods of pumping fluids from the top, we've determined that drilling a relief well is required to permanently seal the well and stop the leak. And in the spirit of total transparency, our best estimates at this point is that this relief well process could take 3 to 4 months. But we'll be doing everything in our power and control to work as safely and expeditiously as possible. We'll have better information once the drilling operations get started and they get closer to the actual leaking well. And we plan to start the actual drilling later this week. And we'll provide and communicate regularly with the public on our progress and provide detailed updates. And once the drilling starts, our crews will be working 24/7 when permissible to complete this process. But we're also taking additional steps and evaluating other technologies and solutions to further reduce the gas being released from the well site. We'll soon be reattaching pipes to the leaking well so that we can collect the gas and use it in our system to help serve our customers. In addition, we're continuing to withdraw gas from adjacent wells around the impacted well site, which will help reduce the overall pressure in the reservoir and reduce the amount of gas being released from the impacted well. We're also working with additional outside experts to evaluate solutions to gather gas that may be released around the well site so that it doesn't flow into the atmosphere. And lastly, we're continuing to evaluate alternatives to eliminate the smell of the odorant in the gas being released. And we're working closely with the South Coast Air Quality Management District team and county agencies on this endeavor. This is a multi-pronged approach to address the leak, the gas, and the smell. On the communication side, we appreciate the coordination and the collaboration we've had with the multiple agencies supporting this effort. And as well, we have appreciated the constructive suggestions and ideas provided by Councilman Englander and his staff, since they're so close to the community and they give us a better sense for what's really happening there. We've also brought in additional resources from the outside to better support our plans. And here are some of the steps that we are taking immediately to improve our outreach and our communications with the community. First, we're bolstering our efforts and resources to minimize the discomfort and disruption to Porter Ranch residents, including providing temporary home-like accommodations to those families and households who have requested to be temporarily relocated. In addition, we'll be deploying additional resources and services to support residents in the community who are remaining in their homes during this period. We're also working with LAUSD and directly with the local schools to provide air filtration systems to help mitigate the smell of the odorant. In addition, we're in the process of opening up a physical community resource center in Porter Ranch where residents can quickly get answers to their questions, either in person or by phone. And we'll be providing regular community updates through various communication vehicles. Lastly, and maybe even more importantly, we'll be listening to those that are most impacted by the gas leak and be open to suggestions and ideas on how we can make this more tolerable. What I'd like to do now, with your permission, is to allow my colleagues to go through their information so that we can go to your questions.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take the time to provide you some background on the purpose of this field and the history as well of the incident. So first and foremost, for those of you who are familiar with the area, when you drive the 118 and you look north in the Porter Ranch area, there is a mountain range. That range is a depleted oil and gas field. It's been around since the 1950s. In 1971, we took over that field for the purpose of storing gas. Gas is stored in times when there is lower demand, and it's pulled out in times where there's high demand. Very simply, it's a method of peak shaving. The types of the resources that are used for that purpose support not only heating loads like this time of the year, but also more and more as we have more renewable energy sources. When the sun goes down and solar is no longer a resource, nor wind, it's these types of storage fields that provide the gas and the fuel to keep the power on throughout the day. At the Aliso Canyon Storage Field, we have over 100 injection and storage wells. Very simply, gas is injected into a deep reservoir. It's not a tank. It's not a cavern. This is a sandstone formation. It's a geologic formation that is protected and sealed by a cap rock, 8,000, 9,000 feet underground. We compress and push the gas in there to store it, and when we need the gas is pulled back up and put into service. And that's how the field operates. Typically, in the summer times is when we inject the gas, and the winter is when we pull the gas out. With respect to regulation, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources is the oversight agency for the wells. On the surface, the California Public Utilities Commission is the oversight agency. For this incident with this well, it is DOGGR who is overseeing the incident from a regulatory perspective. We also have, through DOGGR and through regulations, a very stringent maintenance inspection schedule. Every year we're required to do what's called a temperature log to see if there are any leaks or integrity issues. We also do weekly pressure reads, and we do daily observations at the well site itself. And it's during the daily observation that we noticed, if I can take you back in the history of the incident, the odor coming from the well site that said to us, something is happening here that is not normal. And that caused us to do gas surveys at the site. This is October 23rd. And we determined that the best course of action at that time was to, as we say in the industry, kill the well, which is to pour fluids, create a hydrostatic head of water that's tall enough, has enough weight to push against and overcome the pressure of the gas coming from the ground. Very standard practice, which we do all the time. When we attempted to do this on the 24th, because it was an evening on the 23rd, we did not want to do the work. We quickly realized that this was not the solution at the time, and immediately called on world-class experts, as Dennis referred to come and assist us. They arrived the next day on Sunday. One of the things that we've been asked is, why is this taking so long? Why has it been weeks? And what I want to share with you is that we have been working, as Dennis said, expeditiously and safely as possible. It's a very methodical, sequential process. We start off with what we believe is the solution, and if that is not working, we go to a more aggressive solution as a next step. Part of what happens as we become more aggressive is we limit our options. So as an example, people have asked us, why didn't you pour cement the first day? The challenge with that is, if you pour cement and it dries up, it really clogs up our ability to access the well and to do kill operations. So we've taken a very methodical, sequential, progressive approach to the well. The other thing is, in terms of time, deploying the equipment which came from the Gulf State area, setting that up took over a week. The other factor that's come into play with time has been weather and safety. As those of you who live in Porter Ranch are well aware, wind is a big factor in that area. And we have to be mindful that when we're going to be doing work at the well site, we want to make sure the workers, employees, and contractors are not in harm's way from a wind direction. And there have been a number of days where that's not been a safe condition for us. So let me take a minute now to share with you what the relief well is and why we're pursuing that option. Very simply, relief well is a way to intercept the well very much close to the bottom. We know that there's a leak somewhere in the existing well, which we call SS25. We've made 6 attempts to kill it with traditional methods and fluids very aggressively. And while Dennis mentioned that there's other activities we'll be doing to continue in a parallel path to mitigate it, we will be pursuing the relief well, and we have been for several weeks now. The well will drill down. It'll get close to 8,000 plus feet. It will actually intercept the SS25 well, and by intercepting it, we then have access to directly inject heavy fluids and to cement it. There is no goal here to try and save or salvage this well. We are going to permanently abandon it once we stop the flow of gas. The other thing I want to mention to you is that as someone who's the incident commander over this incident itself, you have my full commitment that we are and we will continue to work on this expeditiously. Safety for the public, Safety for our workers is our first and foremost paramount objective. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn over to our Vice President of Customer Services, Gillian Wright.
Thank you, members of the Council, for this opportunity to share both what we have done and what our plans are going forward. I want to start by echoing Dennis's sentiments and to tell you really how deeply sorry we are for how this leak has disrupted the lives of the people, our customers and neighbors in Porter Ranch. We recognize that this is more than an engineering problem. This is a community problem. And we need to treat it in that same way and bring the resources to bear to address the needs of the community in the same way we've brought the resources to bear to address the engineering issues. So I'd like to quickly run over what we've done with the community, and Dennis alluded to a number of our plans. One of the things we did from the very beginning to help assure the safety of the community is starting on October 30th, we began doing air sampling both on our site and in the community. The reason we did air sampling on our site is to be able to identify trajectories and to see a pattern of dispersion of any contaminants. We're sampling for methane, for hydrocarbon components, and for the components of mercaptan. We do daily samples, twice daily. And in all of the sampling that we have done, and we will continue to do, we have found no levels of health concern for any of these constituents. That doesn't mean that you can't smell the mercaptans, because that substance is designed to be detectable at extraordinarily low levels. So while air monitoring and air sampling equipment cannot detect the levels of mercaptan that are present in the community, the human noses can. And that's really the source of the problem that we need to help to address. So our next focus is really to work on reducing or eliminating the odor in the community, because that is the source of the frustration, the discomfort, and the relocation that some residents have experienced. But while we are doing that, we're also going to focus on making the relocation process go as smoothly as possible. We're focused now on identifying accommodations that will be as home-like and as comfortable as is possible given the circumstances, and to assist those residents that are relocated with issues and challenges that come up, such as school transportation, care for elderly relatives, and care for their pets. But our ultimate goal is to return these residents to their homes in comfort as soon as possible. And we're going to be very focused on creating an environment where they're able to do that. And finally, we need to focus on communication. As Dennis acknowledged, our early efforts at communication have stumbled in some cases. We have continued to improve and expand our communication, but what we commit to you today is that we will communicate more and better with more voices and to be more forthcoming and transparent. We're trying to tell you now what we know and what we don't know, and to answer your questions in the form and the venue that is most accessible and that gives you the most confidence that you have the information you need to make decisions, and for those community members to be able to feel confident in their choices, whether it is to stay in their homes or to relocate.
Council member, if I can just finish by saying, when this is all done, and it will be all done, you have my commitment and the commitment of SoCalGas that we were going to continue to cooperate with all the relevant agencies represented at this table and throughout the state, the county, and the city. And we've been doing that from the very beginning, but to learn from this incident and to get better. And we're also going to complete an accurate and transparent and fact-based measurement of the gas that was released from the incident so that we can better understand the overall impact to the environment. And we've reached out to the Air Resources Board to tell them that we would support them in additional flyovers so that we can be measuring and get data and help them with their estimate. But we will be doing a fact-based physical measurement when this is all complete. And I'd like to assure you and everyone else here and the members of the Porter Ranch community that fixing this leak, stopping the flow of gas, and supporting the residents of Porter Ranch is our top priority and my top priority, and we're going to do this as safely and as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have a number of questions, and before I do a deep dive into those, let me just say that I'm as less confident now after hearing the presentation as I was before I walked in. Neurological, gastrointestinal, and respiratory issues aren't quality of life smells. And those are really geared towards looking at the average 30-year-old male healthy person being affected. We've got children. We've got elderlies. We have people with already serious respiratory illness. We have severe asthmatics. We have all kinds of different folks that live in this community that are being impacted severely. It's not simple to simply say, and you can't sugarcoat it to say, well, they can voluntarily relocate for a small period of time. That is not a simple thing to do, particularly when you have folks that are disabled living in places that they're accustomed to. Perhaps they're on their own. We have a lot of families with small children, and we're going to talk to LAUSD, and I appreciate you being here about what we're doing in that effort. This is very serious, and we need to get to some of the serious answers and doing a deeper dive on what are the long-term health impacts of mercaptan or other chemicals that are either being used, proposed to be used, that are out there being tested to be used, or the long-term impacts are just on methane. We've heard the numbers that are being released into our communities, into our homes. We need to know what these long-term impacts, health impacts, can be. It's been stated that there are short-term impacts, but nobody has stated what happens when you're exposed to them for long periods of time. And so I do appreciate the fact that we do also have the AQMD here and Dogger, and those are the folks that are primarily the jurisdictions overseeing this, along with many others, but the lead, if you will, agencies. And so if we can hear from them as well as County Health to talk about what have you been doing in terms of identifying the people when they call, and we'll get into who do they call, how do they call, when should they call, because those things are very important as well. But first and foremost, how do you identify to AQMD as the primary for working on airborne issues? Those folks that are impacted, how do you register them and work with them, and what's going on in those efforts and what's been happening and how is that either ramping up more, and if you could speak to that. And then County Health on some of the chemical issues, and we'll talk about some health studies as well. So I'll just open it up to you folks for that.
Well, sure. Well, let me speak. This is Steve Bolin. I'm the State Oil and Gas Supervisor. Let me begin by saying that one of the highest priorities of the State Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources is public safety, conducting oil and gas operations with the smallest environmental footprint, and making sure that oil and gas activities are conducted safely in the state. That's really one of our top priorities. Since this event began, we have had some of our senior engineers on site at all times interacting with the company. There for a number of reasons, both to observe what's going on, to interact with the company on their plans, to permit activities as they need to be permitted according to regulation, and do that as quickly and expeditiously as possible. We have also ordered the company to provide us with all of the information of all of the tests that they have conducted as part of a stepwise process to close the well. Furthermore, we have shifted our personnel around the state so that we have some of the most experienced reservoir engineers on site, and some of our top people are there interacting with the company, asking questions, challenging their approaches, and making sure that things are being done safely, things are being done as quickly as possible, and according to regulations. The division is one of 5 state agencies that reports daily to the governor's office. That includes the California Public Utilities Commission, the California Energy Commission, the Office of the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and the California Air Resources Board. We have a daily telephone call. We report to the governor's office, and we make sure that we are all coordinated in our respective roles and responsibilities. So we have been with the company making sure that things are moving forward as quickly as possible. We review their plans, especially with respect to the relief well, which we urge the company to consider as a Plan B very early on in the process. And we are reviewing that to make sure that we are getting that well drilled as quickly as possible. So the division's response has been full time and been a daily ongoing occurrence.
As it relates to the equipment for the relief well, and you review all of the apparatus and heavy equipment that come in for siting that and setting that up as well? Is that part of your jurisdiction?
The operator, the company, is responsible for actually doing the work or overseeing a contractor who does the work. Mm-hmm. And then the division permits various specific activities within that set of activities.
How long does it normally take to bring in all of that equipment to begin? Because we're hearing 3 months to drill the relief well. How long is the period that it takes to bring in all of that heavy equipment, to clear an area, to have it set up and operational? What's that time frame?
Well,
normally
it depends. I mean, a lot of the activities that have been going on at the well site to kill the well that it currently exists involves equipment that isn't typically used actually on land surface. It's typically used in offshore applications. The equipment had to be mobilized from Louisiana, for example. The specific question that you asked, though, about well pad development, getting the conductor casing in, getting all those things ready, that's actually been going on fairly quickly. And as you heard the company say, they are going to be ready to initiate drilling. Actually, I heard tomorrow, but certainly in the next day or two. And that does take, grading of the pad, bringing in fill, all that kind of thing.
Well, rain, we're expecting a big El Nino. Will rain affect that? Yes.
If you could, what I'd like
We're
to
just getting started, Mr. President.
I know. So what I'd like to do is allow some of the other members.
Absolutely.
And then we can come back to you.
I've got a long laundry list, but let me just finish, if I could, with AQMD
go ahead
as well. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So you might want to order lunch. But with that, so we're looking at Thursday, and then what about the El Ninos? We expect those coming in. Is that going to affect operations for that as well?
It could very well. Wind is a serious problem up there. It's a serious problem for a number of reasons. First of all, worker safety. Mm-hmm. The other problem that has to be constantly mitigated against is the risk of ignition of the methane.
Right.
And so everything has to be done very carefully. And so there are ignition sources, engines, lights, and so forth, cell phones, things like that. So all of that has to be done very carefully. When it's exceptionally windy, you have to be careful about the ingestion of methane into engines. It can kill the engine, it can cause fire, and so forth. So wind is an enemy up there. Significant rain events can be mitigated against to some degree in terms of the well pad construction. But that, if it rains like it can rain in the LA basin, that will have a negative impact on getting the work done.
Thank you. If we can now hear from AQMD, and you mentioned fire, so I think we need to hear from our fire agencies as well as it relates to what happened in San Bruno and other places and what we can experience in that activity in that area and how we're prepared for that. But first on AQMD, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. I'm Mohsen Nazemi. I'm Deputy Executive Officer with AQMD. Our agency is responsible for 4-county region of Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside metropolitan areas, and all of Orange County, population of about 17 million people. Our agency, as you heard, a leak occurred and was detected on October 23rd. Our agency started to receive complaints the next day on October 24th, and we have responded to complaints ever since. And as you heard from Councilmember Englander, we've received close to 1,000 complaints to date. Over 870 of them have actually identified their household where they are complaining about, and the total number of households are over 410 households that have complained to us for various reasons, and odor is the main complaint. We have conducted over 3 dozen inspections, site inspections, and complaint responses since October 24th, and we issued the gas company a notice to comply on November 5th, requesting information on when they learned about the leak, what actions have they taken to address the leak, and also requiring them to safely and immediately stop the release of odors that are impacting the community nearby. Since then, we have continued to receive complaints from the community. We have taken air samples in the community and analyzed the samples similar to what the gas company has been doing on a daily basis. We also made a determination that the situation deserves a notice of violation for creating a public nuisance by impacting a considerable number of public and persons within that community. We issued that notice of violation on November 23rd and identified a public nuisance that occurred on October 24th, and it's ongoing. In fact, we've been getting on certain days more than 60 complaints in one day. Right after Thanksgiving, for example, we had a large number of complaints coming in. As far as our activities, we are participating in 2 daily conference calls and meetings with the gas company and other agencies that you see around the table here to getting updates and asking questions on what's going on. We also have reviewed and commented on their odor mitigation and air monitoring plan. We've been involved with the one of the mitigation measures is to use a odor suppressant material. We actually had staff at their facility.
That's the Audex that they've been talking about.
Audex is the material.
And can you speak to some of the issues or control? We'll ask County Health, I think, to weigh in on those and other chemicals. But okay.
Sure. We actually took a sample of Audex yesterday, and we're analyzing it ourselves also to make sure the MSDS material information is correct. We are participating in a meeting again this afternoon with the supplier of Audex to go over their misting system and discuss what the impacts might be. Our concern is that we don't want an agent to be used to react with the mercaptans to knock down the mercaptan by itself, but become a problem of odor or other type of health problems by itself. And also, there's a concern that if you remove the odorant material, as you heard, it's a safety component that's added to natural gas, then how do you know there isn't enough gas to cause ignition?
And has that ever been done? Have they ever used it in this kind of capacity, on this kind of scale, to this degree that you know of?
The supplier has provided us and the gas company with a list of where this has been used in the past. It has not been used in this type of incident before, but it has been used for odor suppressant from landfill, excavation, and other types of operations where, again, the application was not exactly the same as before, and in those cases there were considerable other concerns relative to toxicity or dust that was being generated as well.
Yeah, I'd have a grave concern over being experimental at this stage, but okay.
So at this point, I'll just close down by letting you know we're continuing to respond to odor complaints and doing inspections as we have a 24/7 complaint line, 1-800-CUT-SMOG. The involvement of AQMD is going to be with the agencies around the table here and the gas company to make sure that any mitigation measures that they're proposing is effective and would safely and immediately address the odor issue. And we are ready to conduct additional air sampling as necessary to identify any other impacts to the community.
Great. Thank you very much. And I know you guys are working around the clock on this, and we appreciate it very much as well.
And I have brought a map of what you asked for yesterday, and I'll leave this with you.
Oh, excellent. The radius map and
yes.
geographically
areas of odor complaints.
Yeah. Colleagues, you'll be delighted to know that I've spent hours on this every single day for the last 40 days, and in fact all day yesterday, reaching out to, as I've been doing with all of our regulatory agencies as well. And so the questions I'm asking and the information that we're getting today isn't necessarily all the information that's been shared, some publicly, but a lot of information. Instead of spending 4 or 5 or 6 hours here today, they've already been prepared to bring things back to our office and share as well. So because also we're having a big public hearing on this in my district, hosted by the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, and I want to appreciate everything they've been doing on this every single day, all day long as well. We'll be doing that tomorrow night, but still a number of questions. If we could just turn over to County Health, and then after that I'll open up to my colleagues and then follow up with the final questions I've got as well, because I still have quite a bit, if that's okay, Mr. President.
Okay, we'll do that, but I do have other members that want to get engaged, and we still have public comment.
Please, thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Dr. Cyrus Rankin with LA County Public Health. My background is in medical toxicology, so I'm trained in the diagnosis and treatment of humans and their exposure to toxins. We've been involved with this incident since about the 28th of October, and working with all the agencies here around the table. And the first thing I just want to do, and this echoes one thing that you just brought up, Council Member, is that I do want to make sure that we are referring to what's going on in the community as health effects. These are actual health effects, actual symptoms. And we do hear a lot of different language coming out from different agencies and different reports about things like discomfort and disruptions. And I would like to make sure that we all get on the same page and speak the same language on that issue. These are really health effects. They're really health symptoms. And they're not happening in everybody. There are hundreds of people in the neighborhood who don't smell anything. There are hundreds of people who do smell something and don't feel anything. And then there are several hundred who smell something and are feeling these health effects. And so the health effects that you reported, Council Member, the neurological issues like headaches and dizziness, gastrointestinal issues like nausea and vomiting, stomach discomfort, and the respiratory issues such as shortness of breath, all real health symptoms and things that I as a doctor would be treating a patient for those symptoms.
Particularly as we start entering flu season.
Sure, and those things can be complicating issues as we get into that. And we're also talking about vacation season for school, which means that more families are going to be spending more times at home as opposed to maybe away from the areas that may be causing them that discomfort. So all of this is kind of a perfect storm and really underlies the reason that we need to expedite this as quickly as possible. So I have no doubt that you guys are applying all the technological expertise necessary to make all that happen. But I do want to make sure that we're all referring to what's going on here as actual health effects. We've gotten at our office approximately 100 calls from residences, and it may be one caller on behalf of an entire family. So we may be talking about several hundred people ultimately who are complaining to our department about potential health problems, and they're all ranging in the same vein that we just talked about with all these various short-term daily health symptoms. But whereas at the outset of this incident, we were led to believe at the time that this may be fixed within a few days, that's when we as a health department were thinking, well, okay, we can observe this phenomenon, we can make sure that it gets fixed in a few days, and then we can see what happens in the aftermath. But then as we were informed later on in the ensuing weeks that this is a much more complex problem and requires a much more complex solution, that's when we as the county health department issued our directive that, well, if this is going to go on for a while, that means people are going to continue to have these recurrent daily symptoms, and that's going to be a problem for a longer period of time as opposed to a few days. So that's why we thought it would be important that anyone who is experiencing those symptoms should have the option for relief and voluntary relocation assistance. Again, still underscoring that we've got to hit the underlying problem, which is fixing the leak. We are working with a number of families as well who have some chronic health conditions where this stuff may affect them a little bit differently. In terms of, you brought up the issue of children versus adults. In general, when you're talking about these kinds of exposures, children versus adults, you're more or less going to get the same kinds of symptoms, but where I do see a difference is with people who have chronic disease. So in other words, if you've got asthma, you already have heart disease, or you already have lung disease, or some other condition, then these kinds of exposures could exacerbate those conditions and cause people to have to use their medications more frequently, or something like that may cause a unique health problem in that individual. So those are the situations that we're focusing even more on as they come into to our offices. So I think that's my basic theme, that we just need to do this as quickly as possible and make sure that no matter what we do, that health is the #1 reason why we're doing it.
I appreciate that, and which is why I'm calling this a catastrophic event. And with that, I've got a number of recommendations that I'll make when we're all done relating to every one of these items and issues and things that I'm going to ask that we follow through on as well. So thank you for that. I truly appreciate it. As it relates, it was said a moment ago, well, I said I'd turn it over to, I've got a number of other questions as well, and we've got other agencies we haven't heard from, but I did say we've got some other colleagues on the queue, so I'd like to turn it over to them.
Okay, so I want to go to Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about the impact on the neighborhood, so I want to address that. But I am concerned about the impact of all this methane going into the atmosphere. I think you all know that methane's 87% more powerful as a greenhouse gas cause than carbon dioxide. So I want to know if we know how much methane is going in every day, how much methane we think will be put into the atmosphere by the time this leak is stopped, and how that compares to what our regular methane output from leaks as a city normally is.
Council member, I can start with that. We can't do an accurate estimate at this point in time from the gas company's perspective of how much natural gas or how much methane is being released. As I mentioned in my comments, what we will do when this is complete, because we do this every year, we will take an accurate fact-based reading of how much gas was released, and we will report that. We do that every year to the CPUC, and we'll work with any other agency. But it's really not until this is over will we be able to have a fact-based, accurate measurement.
And I mean, I heard some of the discussion, but I don't understand why this has to take so long in terms of achieving closure. Was there not some more emergency-based response that you could have taken to stop this from happening, and then work from a position where the leak was at least closed, and then figure out how to do this more expeditiously?
No, it's a great question. As Jimmy Cho mentioned, on the 23rd, when the gas smell was apparent, we did what was traditionally called a kill operation to pump fluid into the gas well itself. That was not successful. And this is an operation that we do on average 20 times a year at our facilities, and they're usually very successful the first or second time. What the information that our crew got immediately led them to say, there's something unusual here. That's why we called in outside experts. That's why we flew in those experts from the Louisiana, Texas area. That's why we brought in the equipment that we needed at extra days, because this was unusual for even us. That's why it's taken so long. In regards to the relief well that we were talking about as well, we started over 2 weeks ago to clear the site, to prepare the foundation. Fortunately, we had a drilling rig on site, so we were able to move that and other equipment. Ordinarily, doing something like that alone probably would have taken a month to 2 months. We were able to expedite that because the equipment was available, and we put the resources to work. As far as why is it going to take the 3 to 4 months, the first initial part of the drilling will actually go relatively quickly. It's not until you're actually approaching the well that, remember, we're going to be drilling to a site that's roughly 8,700 feet below the ground. Once you start approaching the well, it's very methodical. You're literally going 20 feet, pulling everything out, checking the equipment, checking the coordinates, going back in, going another 20 feet. So it's very methodical, and that's why it takes the time that it does.
Now, it was mentioned that you could have cemented the well shut. Could that have actually been done, and could it have been done in such a way that one could then approach the well from another site at a later time at your convenience, but without the leak continuing?
The short answer is no. Cementing is the final process after the leak has been stopped. Cementing is a permanent process once we have had full confidence the leak is no longer present. So the answer is no.
So there's no way, no matter how problematic in terms of obtaining gas, there was no shortcut way to close it off.
I think you mentioned the word shortcut. The answer is definitely no. It is, as I mentioned, a very methodical, progressive process of starting with what we believe is the right solution, and each successive step taking on more aggressive measures, but trying to leave as many options open as we possibly can. And once we stop the leak, only then do we take the steps to permanently seal it with cement and abandon it.
I want to ask one last question. Is there anything that you could have done that you didn't do to close this leak off faster?
There will be a full investigation because we want to know as well, but at this time, I believe we've taken all the right steps in the methodical sequence to address what's been going on here.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rue.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, that was a technical error. Okay, so I'm going to go back. When do you want to start the public comment? You want to ask your questions
very
first?
Soon, yeah. I just want to get through a few more. And I know we'll have a lot more time tomorrow night as well, as they've been directly accessible, but I want to get this out there. So also, before I forget, you'd mentioned that you brought in additional outside experts. Beyond the folks that are around the table here today, what other jurisdictions, regulatory agencies, and what other outside experts have you brought in or retained on this?
A couple that I can mention is we did bring in a communication firm that is experienced in dealing with these types of issues on outreach, how to most effectively talk to communities so that we can be as effective as possible. The other thing that is we've reached out to 2 world-class top engineering firms to help us look specifically at how we can gather the gas.
Who are those?
I'm not at liberty to disclose that right now. I will once we can.
Are they under contract yet?
They were contacted, and we were in discussions. I spoke with 2 of the firms 2 days ago. I don't know at this moment whether the contracts were signed last night or not.
Will you be able to share the information once the contracts are signed?
I believe so.
Okay, you'll let us know so we can share that publicly?
Sure.
I think the more public information out there, the better.
We're willing to be completely transparent as long as there isn't something in the contract on the other side that prevents that. But from our perspective, we will share everything that we can.
In addition, on the resources, I'd like to mention that we have brought on a environmental medicine and occupational health specialist to assist in interpreting air sampling results.
Do we know who they are?
Dr. Mary McDaniel.
Okay.
We also have brought on numerous third-party laboratories, and I'm sorry I don't have the names of each of those, but we have at least 3 separate laboratories that are doing independent verification and measurement of the sampling results. And for the relocation effort, we brought on a third-party 24/7 call center to accept the relocation requests. We currently have 4 housing agencies taking the requests and placing the residents. We continue to add additional relocation agencies to assist, and we're in the process of looking for additional support in that arena.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll address some of those recommendations in terms of information dissemination in my closing recommendations, which I have about a half a dozen of. But before we do that, if we can hear from our firefighters, our fire department, both city and county and hazmat on their activities, and particularly as it relates to first and foremost, could this, and I get a lot of phone calls from my constituents, can this explode as we've seen in other areas where we've had gas explosions? Could this happen at this location? What are the big concerns of the fire department? And if so, what preventative measures in advance have we taken and can we take as it relates to evacuations or other things we need to do, and particularly as we're in a high fire severity zone in a high fire season? So if you can address some of those.
Thank you, Councilmember. Once again, I'm Greg Heisel. I'm the jurisdictional responsible assistant chief for Los Angeles County. The Aliso Canyon falls within the unincorporated area of the county, and so that falls under my purview. We have been at the facility for since October 26th with our Health Hazmat Division, and we do ongoing monitoring for the combustible gas. And to get direct to your point, is it explosive? I would say that it's more ignitable than it is explosive. And the difference there is that it's coming out of the ground under pressure. And so where we're focused is on preventing that ignition and making sure that we have no sources of ignition around the site. So if we look at something like San Bruno, the similarities are not there, and it's very unlikely that we would have an explosive incident up there. But it is likely that we could have, if we don't prepare the site and maintain safety, a possible ignition, because we do have areas where the lower explosive limit is met and an ignition could happen. So what we've done since this started back in, for us when we were notified on October 26th, is we've created an incident support team. We're on site with the facility daily. We have a plan section chief that helps create components and objectives within the incident action plan. And what that does for us is it provides us with the information about their ongoing activities on a daily basis. Also, we get a status report, a summary report in the morning for the previous day's activities on the successes of the day. We get a weather report, and we look at the National Weather Service for any potential wind events or lower humidity events that would be of concern to us. And we include that in our incident action plan. We have a medical plan that we also include. And so, like it was stated earlier, safety of the citizens, safety of the employees on site, safety of the workers is number one, and so we make sure that we're engaged in that, and we have resources available to us nearby. We've partnered with Los Angeles City Fire Department, and they're working there side by side in assisting us because the city has the jurisdictional responsibility for Porter Ranch area and the community. They are also the closest fire and EMS facility to the Aliso Canyon facility. So they would be responding up there. So we've partnered with them. We've been working with them within the incident action plan and as part of the incident support team. Again, we do have ongoing daily measurements of the methane for combustibility locations. We're ensuring that, along with the gas company, that we do not have any sources of ignition, and we're ensuring that with the weather conditions that we shut down operations when the weather doesn't permit for safe operations. And we do that along with the gas company, and that's noted in our incident action plan.
Okay, thank you. And City Fire, do you want to add anything?
Good morning. I'm Assistant Chief Raynar. I'm actually assigned to the Valley Bureau. In coordination and cooperation with our partners with LA County Fire, obviously Aliso Canyon is within the County of Los Angeles, so we don't have administrative jurisdiction over that property. However, we would be remiss not to prepare for a contingency, and we've had significant incidents that have been very close to the Aliso Canyon area. In 2008, we experienced a Cesnon fire that originated in Aliso Canyon. In 1988, we had another wildfire that was very close by that also impacted the property. So we've taken significant steps to ensure that our folks are prepared to handle any eventuality if it comes to fire or storm. And as a contingency also, we do have an evacuation plan that's in writing that's shared with our partners with Los Angeles Police Department and our city's emergency management department. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we do have today here with us Captain Robert Marino, the commander of the Devonshire Division here. He's been working very closely also with Southern California Gas and the public safety departments that are here.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go through just my recommendations. Yes.
Why don't we just wait 1 second? Let me get some of the public
Absolutely.
comment.
Let's go ahead and do that, and we'll go
Okay,
through
so if I can, and then I'll go right back to you. If I could have Paula, president of the, and I couldn't make out the last name, of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, Gabriel, Gabriel, I'm going to have you come up and pronounce your last name. Joni Spears or Spires, please come forward. Be 1 minute per person.
Thank you. My name is Paula Cratio. I am president of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. Our community is in crisis after over a month of these leaks. People are forced to leave their homes, and day after day their lives are greatly impacted for their short term and great concerns for the long term. If they do stay in their homes, they fear that they will struggle with the side effects of the leaks. Everything from headaches to nosebleeds, nausea, and vomiting. With no long-term study, it's been hard for us to realize that we are now the long-term study on the effects of mercaptan. They are concerned about their property values and the future stability of their homes. They're concerned about the fire and the risk of explosion with the site in such close proximity to oil wells. We would like to look for 24-hour monitoring at the well sites and in our communities. We want to know that our families are safe to live there. We want to know that our children are safe to go to school there and that our community is safe to work in. We want to know if shutting down the option. Thank you.
So if I could have Gabriel,
yes,
followed by Miss, is it Spears or Spires? And then if I could have, I think it's Jane Fowler, maybe? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Gabriel Callan. I'm actually here representing Porter Ranch residents. We want the gas company to stop the expansion. They can't even stop one single leak, nevertheless expanding and having more wells and more projects on site. We want them completely investigated. Why couldn't they stop the leak from the beginning? And why did they let us know about the leak 4 days after it actually started? And what are they going to do in the future to stop such a thing? Us residents are supposed to have automatic shutoff valves. Why does the gas company not have automatic shutoff valves? We are here. We're not test objects. We're actually residents of Porter Ranch, and we want actual answers, reliable answers regarding these projects and upcoming projects coming on. I want basically my peaceful life back in Porter Ranch. Enough with the nosebleeds, enough with the headaches, enough with the nausea, and we just want to go on with our lives. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. If I could have the next person come forward and identify.
Hello, my name is Joni Spears, and I'm actually from Granada Hills Highlands. My home borders the Aliso Canyon area. I purchased my home, which I thought was my dream home. I have a pre-existing condition. I'm actually one of the vulnerable residents that Councilman Englander is concerned about. I have an autoimmune disease. I have been so sick this last month. My friend and neighbor literally had to drag me here today to speak. I began developing seizures around the first week of November. I'm now on seizure medication. I've had such massive headaches, I can barely lift my head off of the pillow. My nasal passage burns. Since I've left the area, the headaches have improved. The nasal passage problem does feel better, but I've also literally overnight developed a tumor under my left armpit. I don't feel safe living in the home anymore.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Could I have the next speaker please identify yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Jane Fowler. I'm Joni's neighbor. I'm in Granada Hills and have been sick. Headaches, nausea, vomiting, to the point of you become depressed because every day you have headaches and you feel nauseous and you don't know what's wrong. And it wasn't until Wednesday on the radio I heard something about, Aliso Canyon gas leak, and I Googled it and I realized, everything that it has listed as a symptom, finally an answer to what the problem is. I've been going to the doctors, going to the dentist. Why does my head hurt? Why am I sick to my stomach? I should take stock in Pepto-Bismol. I'm concerned about, my vegetable garden. I don't know if I can swim in my pool or eat the vegetables that I have. I also know that it's just Porter Ranch. It's not just Porter Ranch. It's going up into the air. I'm concerned about, all of us. in California.
Thank you.
Please help us.
Thank you. So if I could have, no, I didn't call your name.
Hey, come on.
No, wait. I have to, when I,
37 years
no, wait. I'm looking for Michelle Therault and a Patrick Oliver, and you will be given a chance to speak, sir. Danielle Michaels, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Michelle Theriot, and I live in the Porter Ranch area. And I first want to thank Mr. Englander for listening to the community and ordering this investigation of SoCalGas. As you know, SoCalGas has over 100 other active wells in the hills just above our community. They informed us a month ago that they'll take about 6 to 7 years to perform their well integrity management of all those wells, which is the thorough inspection of all those wells. That's absolutely unacceptable to us. We're downwind of this enormous storage facility, one of the largest in the country. Since many of these wells are over 50 years old, it seems likely that these types of leaks will continue to occur. Thus, we, the community, we want the facility shut down and all the wells thoroughly inspected now, not over 6 to 7 years. The storage facility is located in a designated significant ecological area, as well as a high fire hazard severity zone. It's the same area where the huge 2008 Cessnon fire occurred, where thousands of community members had to evacuate. How many more of these accidents have to happen before they shut down the facility?
Thank you. So if I could have the next speaker.
Hello, my name's Danielle Michaels, and I'm here on behalf of my 2 sons and all of the thousands of children of Porter Ranch. My oldest son has had ongoing daily health effects. I'm watching his health deteriorate every single day. Really. It's not made up. It's happening. We're seeing it. Hopefully the gas and chemicals will stop someday, but my husband and I and other thousands of parents will be left to worry about what the toll has taken on their little bodies. The children of Porter Ranch deserve better than you are giving them. They really do. Each and every single one of you. They deserve your protection, and they deserve clean air to grow up in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. I am Patricia Oliver. I'm with the RX Paris Law Firm on behalf of residents in Porter Ranch and Save Porter Ranch. I'm not here in Rex's official capacity as mayor, so I work with him in private practice. I wanted to just first highlight for the LA City Council an important factor. These are not natural gas wells that are natural to Aliso Canyon. These are injection wells, meaning that the natural gas is injected back underground. In September alone, they injected 5.7 billion cubic feet of gas into that reservoir. What they've not addressed is, has that injection process stopped? They have not addressed whether other injection wells that inject wastewater and other types of products are stopping, because all of those injection activities can force the gas back up and out. In July of this year, the Division of Oil and Gas admitted that LA County is at the greatest risk for public health crises. In October, they quantified that risk, said 78% of the wells were not properly permitted. We are now facing this risk. This should be the first and the last this happens in LA.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could have Daryl Gale, I think it's a Kent Minot. Kayoko Hibino.
Thank you. I'm Daryl Gale, and I live in Los Angeles downtown. I'm not affected personally by the smells or anything. But right now, our mayor, our governor, numerous state legislators are meeting and negotiating with other world leaders in Paris to develop a workable plan and consensus for cutting greenhouse emissions and to keeping global warming at 2 degrees centigrade. And so here, you know, we've been a leader here in California. We've been setting the tone for the world. And then I see what's going on with SoCalGas. Dogger says that they're monitoring and maintaining their high-value commercial products. Well, why did they have to go to Texas and Louisiana to get mitigation or get some way to drill and stop this well? And what if there's a big El Nino and an earthquake? Are we ready for any of this? This is like really scary. I have this fear that the whole mountain is going to blow up and it's going to affect all of us, and all this methane is just taking away from all the hard work we've been doing.
Thank you. So Kent Minot Kyoko Hibino, and Matt Pacuco, and please come up with Matt and pronounce that correctly, and Jack Neff. Yes.
Hi, I'm Kent Minot. I'm a campaign organizer with the Sierra Club, My Gen campaign. I wanted to thank Councilman Englander for your thorough work on this, and especially for pointing out that these are not aesthetic problems, these are health problems, and also for citing the fact that these are 25% of the state's methane leakage. This is a climate disaster and should be considered as such from a policy point of view. The leak clearly shows the absurdity of investing taxpayer and ratepayer money in natural gas infrastructure here. The only course of action that will protect residents near Aliso Canyon is to shut the facility down permanently. There's a new IRENA report from Stanford University, and it joins a growing pile of similar reports articulating a technically and economically feasible path to a 100% clean energy economy. A big basin-wide expansion of natural gas infrastructure is not consistent with this.
Thank you, sir. So if I could have the next, please identify yourself.
Hi, Hi, my name is Kyoko Hibino. I'm the resident of Polo Ranch. This gas leak has been impacting my health and quality of life. After experiencing living next to the facility and 40 days of gas leak not being fixed, it is proven that fossil oil operation is dangerous and method and technology doesn't work. This old Aliso Canyon facility needs to be shut down for the sake of protecting environment and people's health. Here's my other comment. The report from AQMD shows noticeable amount of other chemicals besides mercaptan, including benzene, which is carcinogen, was detected. Mercaptan is not the only chemicals we are breathing. Health impact for every chemical needs to be addressed. Gas company is working behind the scene with City of LA and LADWP to bind another 20 years of contract. We are in climate crisis. Natural gas is not the clean energy.
Thank you.
LA needs to get off.
Thank you. If I could have the next speaker, and I'm looking for a Jack Neff and a Leah Garland and a Richard Matthews. Yes.
Hey, my name is Matt Pacuco. I'm president of a group called Save Porter Ranch, a local citizens group. You all obviously know that people are getting sick. LA County Health has confirmed it. Yet all of you departments keep saying there's no long-term health impacts, and yet no one has presented one single shred, one evidence, one medical study to back that statement. So we got to stop hearing that one. That's like your opinions presented under color of authority as some kind of fact. As far as this Odex, we're not your damn guinea pigs. We have a chemical problem right now. At least we know what we're dealing with. Let's not spray some more crap in the air to see what happens. And this facility, it's aging for years. People have reported these problems long before your leak sprung. And what's this going to do to our property values? What's that going to do to your tax revenues? We don't need that place up there. It's a dinosaur. And how does that facility affect LA's requirements to comply with SB 350?
Thank you. So if I could have, please come forward and identify yourself. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President, Honorable Councilman Englander. My name is Jack Neff. Today I'm speaking with Save Porter Ranch. The gas companies, Sempra Energy, the gas company, Aliso Canyon Natural Gas Storage Facility, there's a certain amount of double talk that comes along with the gas company, and I think it's in the handout that Sempra Energy has handed out today. They claim that this well was inspected and passed an inspection 14 months ago, but they're also admitting that there is a likely well casing leaking. They have daily observations. A lot is going on, but the plan that the gas company has to pump pressurized fluids into the well is it's fracking. They're not disclosing what the chemicals are. They pump the gas in. They can pump the gas out. The City Council cannot consider the gas company's proposed solutions without examining the foreseeable impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neff. Okay.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leah Garland. I want to thank you for being able to speak today and thank Mitch Englander for his work on this. The natural gas leak from underground storage wells is indicative of an aging infrastructure. The wells are 60 to 80 years old. They mentioned that SoCalGas mentioned that 20 times a year that they have to go and kill a well because these wells are old and dying. SoCalGas wants to extract wealth beyond the well's capability. There are several health implications. As we've heard today, residents of Porter Ranch are getting sick from the smell. They are concerned about long-term effects of chemicals such as benzene, a known carcinogen. I ask you to close down Porter Ranch's Aliso Canyon storage field, not just its well. SoCalGas has been grossly negligent in stopping the leak, needing to bring in supplies from Louisiana. They were not prepared for this leak because that's not their concern. Public welfare is not their concern.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. So if I could have Richard Matthews, Jorge Madrid, Alexandra Nagy, followed by a Walker Foley. Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm Richard Matthews, candidate for state senate and decades-long resident of the Porter Ranch area. The immediate problem we have is a technical problem fixing this leak, but I'm very concerned about the long-term issues with regulation and with infrastructure investment. This well is 60 years old. We have an ongoing project at the site to install new compressors that will extend the life of this facility for another 40 years. At that time, we'll now have 100-year-old wells, and we've got 100 of these wells, and we're going to have a lot more of these leaks if we don't shut this down. We shouldn't be continuing to use fossil fuels for another 40 years. We need to shut this down before we get to the next leak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So if I could get, identify yourself.
Okay. Alexandra Nagy, Southern California organizer with Food and Water Watch. I want to thank Mitch Englander for bringing this issue today and for taking a lead role on this. We've been working with Safe Porter Ranch for over a year to stop the expansion of the Aliso Canyon oil field with the Termo project, and now we are working to shut down this facility. We stand with this community for nothing less than shutting this facility down. It's aging, it's old, and it has to go. There are a couple of things that LA City Council can do. One is direct LADWP to come up with a plan for 100% clean energy. This facility and shutting it down is a first step to that. The other thing is SoCalGas is trying to get another 20-year franchise agreement with the city of LA. That is unacceptable, year to year only, especially with the misconduct that SoCalGas has been showing in their ability to not respond to this leak. We can't afford to get into long-term contracts with SoCalGas. We do need to talk more about benzene that has been shown in the community, so we need to hear some more questions about that today and other questions brought forward by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So next. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Madrid. I'm the campaign manager for climate and clean energy at the Environmental Defense Fund. I'm delivering remarks on behalf of my colleague, Tim O'Connor, who could not be here today, but who has been working with the community and many folks that are here at this table. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that we're calling this what this is. This is an emergency. This is bad. Methane stays in the atmosphere for 20 years. I'm going to be in my 50s by the time this is gone. Kid born today is going to be in college by the time this is gone. Methane is 84 times as potent as greenhouse gases. In fact, unfortunately, every day we're spewing the equivalent of burning 6 coal-fired power plants. It is the daily equivalent, or is the daily equivalent of a quarter of all of our state's methane. First and foremost, it is a health hazard and a health tragedy for the folks living near there and fearing for their safety. 3 things I want to talk about. One is let's identify and mitigate the hazards. Let's not let this happen again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But I'm looking for a Walker Foley, a Dr. Tom Williams. And a Mr. Previn. Yes, sir.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Dr. Tom Williams, with the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. We've had this problem over in the Englewood field. 300 people had to be evacuated because of odor. Now, I'm also a member of the AAPG, that is Petroleum Geologists, and Society of Petroleum Engineers. And by the way, thank you, LA Fire Department, for protecting my ass in 1985 when we had the Ross Dress for Less store explosion with methane. And we solved that problem in 3 days. There's a basic problem here. I don't know what you're doing because we can't believe anything that you said. There's not one air sample from the, quotes, leaking well. But how about the property tax assessments? How about the real damages of appraised value to the houses that are affected by odor?
Thank you. So if I could have Mr. Previn.
Good morning, Council and distinguished guests. I recognize some of the characters from the Board of Supervisors last week where they had a very nice presentation along with Public Health, so thank you. And they are waiting for you now, convincingly, surprisingly. This is obviously very much of a big concern, and I know that you're trying to do everything you possibly can. But there was an article in the New York Times which is about drilling in urban areas. It was an editorial, in fact, that said we have gone too far in this direction. We have problems when you have these kinds of operations very near residences. And I just have to say, more often than not, it is in Latino and people of color neighborhoods. This is an example of where it's not, and there is a great outcry. I do think that this problem of urban sort of production needs to be addressed. And I know that there is a lawsuit, and I know that Mr. LeGrand and nobody from City Hall wanted to talk to the New York Times about it, which is a real disappointment because I think we have to, like so many of our problems in the city, face it head on and realize that this is not something that we can continue to do. The risk is too great to the residents. Thank you.
Okay, that, again, no Walker Foley. Then that concludes comment. So I'll defer back to you, Mr. Englander.
Before I go into some various recommendations, I don't think I need to go through a long close on this. We're going to have a 3 or 4 hour, I'm sure, community presentation, discussion, and dialogue tomorrow night in my district, so I appreciate that. I want to thank you all for coming out here today, including SoCalGas and all the regulatory agencies and fire departments that are here. We count on you guys a lot for everything, and our public safety and our health, our well-being, raising our families, and I really appreciate it. And you being here means a lot, not just to me personally, but to all of us and to our residents. I know that your teams have been working around the clock for the last 40 days on this from day one. I know that SoCalGas has been operating here since 1971. Basically, essentially since I was born, with almost no incident that we're aware of. And we would have been aware had there been one. Except we've got one now. I think the biggest flaw in everything we've heard is one you've already admitted to, and that's really sharing the information and getting it out there and making the attempt to do that, which is so critically important. I appreciate that you've recognized that and expanded that team. Because the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's out there is because of the unknown. My residents don't want to be guinea pigs to new chemicals, and they want to know what's out there today and what's being used and what they're being exposed to, and I think that's really important. And so with that, I've got a number of recommendations and that I would like to ask. The city attorney, Mike Fear, and I last week together called on Dogger and the PUC to conduct an immediate investigation into the leak and development of an action plan for mitigation and an expedited determination of what remedies are available to alleviate the serious impacts of the residents. I know they said they're doing that, and we really, truly appreciate it. I'd like to also ask the PUC, we'll be formalizing this as well, to issue an OII, an order instituting an investigation to require that the very residents in Porter Ranch, the gas company ratepayers themselves, the ones that live everywhere in the city of Los Angeles and all of your districts here too, do not have to foot the bill through increased rates. This is going to cost a lot and take some time. The entire incident costs should be on the shoulders of the shareholders instead. I'd like to see the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health conduct a health study on both the short-term and long-term impacts of exposure to mercaptans, excess methane levels, and other chemicals and substances related to this incident. I think the SoCal Gas Company should foot the bill for that as well. And then share the information, disseminate it transparently, the findings, to the entire community. I'd also like to see SoCal Gas Company create a dedicated website, specifically not just off their website, but for this incident, with a community office storefront. I know I suggested it before, and I know in your opening remarks you said you were going to do that, so I really appreciate that. Having a storefront, having an open community office where residents can come in and walk in and talk about all of these issues. It should be ADA accessible and multilingual in order to provide a one-stop portal of information for all members of the public. I propose the formation immediately of a Community Advisory Committee, a CAC. And I know we spoke about this and you supported that, and I appreciate that as well. I'd like to see that get off the ground as soon as possible. They'll meet weekly and regularly channel information and communication and disseminate that information to the community as well. The members should include reps from Castle Bay and Porter Ranch Community Schools, the president of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, the Porter Ranch HOA representatives, Chatsworth Porter Ranch Chamber of Commerce, and my office as well would like to participate in that CAC. I'd also like to ask that you work directly with LAPD. I know our captain was here earlier. We have right now looking at 500 to 700 families being possibly relocated. Those are vacant homes. And I can't tell you what can happen with a vacant home, because you already know. The Devonshire Division has asked for those addresses, and I know there's been some reluctancy to share that. It's private, confidential information. I can assure you this, that Devonshire is very good at that. They'd like to offer some extra patrols. Perhaps an option to give yourself some coverage, because I want to make sure that we're safe and protected, is asking and adding a checkbox to the relocation. Can we share your information confidentially with LAPD so they can do extra patrols? Perhaps reaching out to the ones that have already moved out and ask them to sign a waiver, or if you can share the information. We just need to get to that. Captain Marino has also come up with a plan. Most of these are gated communities and they have security, but they need enhanced patrols and security. He's happy to sit down and share the plan with SoCal Gas Company and the HOAs and what they can do to help augment and enhance those patrols, and I think that needs to be done right away. And LAUSD, and I know you're here, and I really appreciate that as well. There's two things with LAUSD. As we have, we'd like to request that LAUSD work with the families to temporarily enroll relocated students in other schools. But the most important element is to making sure when they return that their current school is protected for their enrollment. So they come back, they still have their seat there. And that's really important. The other thing we'd like to add to that, to LAUSD, is if you can work with SoCal Gas Company. I've talked to them about this before, and I appreciate it, about bringing in some additional school nurses or training for the school nurses as they have to deal with any symptoms or can look at any of these issues. And then finally, I'd like to request that any fines levied against the SoCal Gas Company, particularly from AQMD, which has that authority, be dedicated and stay in Porter Ranch in that community. I think that's very important. And with that, I'd want to thank you all again for coming. I want to thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you and all my colleagues for sitting through this. I know it's really important to my community and to me and to all of you as well, and I want to thank you for giving us this time today to do that. We'll make ourselves available to the media in the back on this, but I want to thank you all very much for your dedicated persistence in this. I want to thank particularly the community, most importantly, for their frustration, suffering through this, knowing it's not over tomorrow, and where the answers won't be forthcoming tomorrow. But we won't stop until it is, and it is resolved on all fronts. And I really appreciate your dedication, your passion, your partnership, and your collaboration in this. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And we view this as a citywide concern, Mr. Englander, and we appreciate that you brought in everybody. A lot of questions have been answered, and now there are a lot of new questions as well. But with that said, I want to thank every one of you for coming. And now let's move on to our next item, which would be Mr. Cedillo. Are we straight on? Is it 1Q?
1Q. Easy to do. Mr. Chairman, this is a simple matter. We have a motion. I ask support from my colleagues. We have spoken to the resident. This is a matter left over from 2010. He is in full compliance and is willing and able to pay the appropriate fees, and I ask that we do so.
Okay, then I have one card. Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Previn, I have a card on this, Mr. Cedillo. Where's Mr. Previn? Mr. Previn, are you going to speak on this item? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm informed, though, to keep his time, that you can talk about 1Q or liens in general. Because this is 1Q is the item that's before you.
Right.
So go ahead.
So the property address, if I have it correct, is 5247 North Vantage near Magnolia. This is in our CD2 district. Now, what this is, sir, is
you're on the wrong item. 1Q, Mr.
I'm sorry?
Previn.
Is this not the Mr. Hankey's development? From
It's
Skyline
1Q.
18?
It's on Figueroa, North Figueroa.
Okay. What happened to Skyline 18?
No, anyway, you're off subject. You have
The
to speak
subprime
on
lender
one.
guy is not.
You had, no, wait.
The
You have to
$46
speak
million
on
lawsuit against the guy?
1Q or generally. You have to. This is the way we run things, Mr. Previn. So it's 1Q.
Okay. Well, 1Q. No, I didn't sign up for 1Q, sir. I signed up for the one in CD2.
Okay, then thank you.
No,
Because
here it is. Here it is.
We've already voted on the other things. This is the only item on the agenda. Thank you. Let's prepare to vote on this now. Mr. Cedillo, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 30, Prentice Jenkins, if you're here. Dr. Williams, Tom Williams, please come forward on item 30. I do not see them here. Let's vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Buscaino, you want to deal with item 14?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Calling this item before you is this exciting progress being made as it relates to redeveloping our LA waterfront. I want to first and foremost thank Mr. Blumenfeld, who held a special committee meeting, TCT meeting at the Port of Los Angeles building a couple of weeks back, November 17th. I was joined by Mr. Blumenfeld and Mr. Bonin. And in this item before you, called for some of the recommendations regarding waterfront development efforts along the San Pedro waterfront. Earlier today, we approved items 15 and 16. Item 15 directed the LA Tourism Board to help promote and market the LA waterfront. We just announced with the mayor the United States Navy bringing in Fleet Week in 2016. Real excited about that. And what we heard from LA Tourism is that we need more programming in there to promote the good things that are happening along our LA waterfront in both San Pedro and Wilmington. We also approved item 16 earlier, Brewery West, that's going to be a premier one of the greenest breweries in Southern California. That's going to bring economic development dollars down to Crafted. And this item before you asked a progress report on the waterfront development. We have Mr. Wickham here, CLA's office. One of the great work that we've done was to find ways to extend the 50-year lease agreement. And we had to work with the state government, state tidelands, and want to thank our state senator Isidore Hall for carrying SB 399, which was recently signed by the governor, which added 16 years to the 50-year lease agreement to help bring in private investment dollars along the waterfront. We also asked earlier this year to find ways to work with Metro to bring the Silver Line down to the San Pedro area. I want to thank Metro, Scott Page, who announced recently that on December 13th, the Metro Silver Line will be connected to San Pedro, which will create more frequent stops between San Pedro and downtown Los Angeles for the workforce, also the visitors. I also want to thank the mayor and MTA board members, Mr. Kokorian and Mr. Bonin, for helping with that effort. In addition, a market feasibility study and a real estate study that's going to be conducted in the first quarter of 2016 on waterfront properties that's owned by the port and the city of Los Angeles. Working with Sam Hughes with EWDD, I want to thank the department there for moving forward on looking at the best and highest use of surface parking lots along the downtown San Pedro and Wilmington areas. Also, the Harbor Department reported on their capital improvement plan. Late last year, the Harbor Department approved $200 million over the next 10 years in their capital improvement plans as it relates to waterfront development. Last month, the port approved the design, engineering, architectural services for the Wilmington waterfront design. And also, we are moving forward on the $50 million improvements to the realignment of Sampson Way, the extension of the promenade, as well as creating the town square on the San Pedro side. So a lot's happening. I want to thank Mike Galvin, Executive Director Gene Soroka, Deputy Executive Director Don Liu, in working with our team as well as city departments. And so you know that Ports of Call is on the map. We are just within the next month. I was told that we're going to be signing a long-term lease agreement with Wayne Rakovich, who is a superstar developer here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're really looking forward to making some noise there, Mr. President. And stay tuned on that front. So thank you again to all city departments for putting the LA waterfront and making the LA waterfront a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Let's prepare to vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, so now we're going to move to item 47. We have already satisfied public comment. So anyway, we do. I was going to say we're going to have public comment anyway on this item. So I want to call Alicia Cohen and Barbara Ferris. Please come forward.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak to you today. This is in reference to a lawsuit against the city regarding the construction and the restoration of youth ball fields in Griffith Park. The petitioner in this matter hangs their lawsuit on one simple statement. The city approved this project in violation of CEQA. In fact, the opposite is true. This project was initially deemed categorically exempt because it was the simple placing of baseball diamonds within a grassy field, a clearing. No city anywhere would ever be facing such a lawsuit. But the city did an EIR to ensure this project was litigation-proof, and I believe it is. The city produced a 346-page EIR with over 60% of it dedicated to environmental analysis, its impacts, and mitigations. If you analyze the lawsuit, it fails to provide any factual evidence supporting the petitioner's 10 causes of actions. Instead, petitioners used their lawsuit to continue to opine and perpetuate numerous errors of fact, too many to mention here, and all under penalty of perjury. You should have no legal fear of this project. Please continue to fight for these ball fields, for these children in and around Griffith Park. I urge you not to settle for anything less than what the community has resoundingly said it wants and needs: the restoration of 2 youth ball fields in Griffith Park.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking our comment today. We greatly appreciate it, President Wesson. And I want to thank you for hearing what we have to say. My name is Barbara Ferris. I'm the Managing Director of Symphony in the Glen. We've been doing free symphony concerts at the Old Zoo for 20 years. And this project at the Old Zoo is so welcome and so needed and so supported by the community that we were flabbergasted that it has gotten this far in the legal process. This challenge is without merit. It went through a complete public approval process, and we hope that you understand that the mitigated negative declaration document upon which it is based is excellent, done by Paul Davis for the Department of Recreation and Parks. Not only is it excellent, it could serve as a model of excellence for other projects. We also would like to say that the Department of Recreation and Parks did an outstanding job in the design, the sensitivity for the setting, and for adding the ADA access that is so sorely needed, and we can attest to that. Please don't settle. Please don't pay their attorney fees. Don't encourage any more of this in Griffith Park. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also have a Mark, and I'll let you pronounce the last name, and a Marisha Johnston.
Masseri. Good morning.
Masseri.
Yes.
Okay, welcome.
Good morning. Council members, $250,000 of the project money for this project was spent to ensure these projects would hold up to any environmental legal challenge. 2 questions should be asked of the city attorney in closed session. Given the money spent, if we are exposed, why? $250,000 went into making sure we wouldn't be exposed. If the city believes that there are significant environmental impacts of putting a baseball diamond in a field next to a freeway, good luck with LA 2024. We have promised the IOC and the USOC that the city can put in venues in Griffith Park. If this one is an environmental impact, what you're proposing for Griffith Park is a carpet bombing. Do not create an obstructionist toolbox that can be used by anyone and anybody under CEQA to challenge anything in the park. I urge the people sitting at this horseshoe in closed session to ask these questions and to realize that this is CEQA abuse and litigious extortion at its worst. Please come through for the people of Los Angeles, come through for the kids of Los Feliz, and do not cave to any legal saber rattling. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning to the City Council members. My name is Marisa Johnston, and I am with Independent Shakespeare Company. We present the Griffith Park Free Shakespeare Festival. Every summer, over 10 weeks, ISCLA brings a community of 50,000 Angelenos and visitors together at the Old Zoo in Griffith Park. The Griffith Park Stage Project makes a positive difference to our diverse, vibrant audience and also to ISCLA as a nonprofit arts organization that provides a community benefit. We have witnessed the thorough and thoughtful public process that gave voice to all stakeholders, the sensitivity of the design, and more importantly, the improved access, which addresses ADA issues, is why I ask you to stand with and support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, I think I want to hold this and then we'll go into closed session, but I want to vote on item 35. So and we want to close the public hearing. I don't have a card from you, so you, sergeants, explain to him how this works. No, I don't have a card. On item 35, Mr. Previn.
And Mr. President, as he's coming, substitute motion for item 35 has been circulated.
Okay, Mr. Previn.
Yes, Mr. Wesson, it is Eric Previn from CD2, and I appreciate your tweaking the City Council standing committee structure. I have been a critic of the current committee structure because I feel that too often residents and members of the public who actually have points of view on committee meetings can't make it to those meetings, and then when it comes to the council, they are, like I am today, banned from speaking on those items. I feel that you could do better, sir, and I have made a proposal that would last for 6 months, which would require or permit, if you will, that people be permitted to speak like you did today, very charitably on item 47. You provided comment, even though it had been satisfied, as you like to say, in committee. So this system, which you've imported from up north, is seems to have passed a variety of smell tests down in this building.
No, you need to get back on the
I'm on
subject.
the committee structure, sir. This is totally. Ask the legal counsel guy; he will tell you. I'm totally on point here. This is about you are changing, if I'm not mistaken, the structure. I mean, that's what Blumenfield and you have made a motion to do, which is fine. I mean, you're welcome to do it. I'm commenting on that whole program. If you want me to be more specific, I can go into the weeds, but I'm trying to keep it understandable for folks who can realize what's happening down here, which is a kind of a reduction of public input. You've done a nice job of doing it. I want to commend you for what you've been trying to do, sir. I know you have other things to do to show that you're a loving guy, like the Neighborhood Empowerment Group. Done. That's all great. And I've recently learned that they're going to be having neighborhood council, so I can try to focus my efforts, if I want to speak for 5 minutes, on getting into that little club. But it turns out I don't really want to be in any little club. I just want to participate in my government, be a little civic engaged like other people. You know, it's tough. You got to pay $20 to come down here to park unless you know one of you guys. It's not so easy to take the time out to come down here, to sign up, to read about the items, to bring for example, Hanky forward. That takes a little bit of,
You're not on the subject.
Well, come on, sir. Let's be
You're not on the subject.
Well, come
Thank
on.
you,
All right,
Mr.
thank
Previn. Thank you. Okay, it's my understanding, Madam Clerk, that there's 2 votes on this. If you could walk us through that.
Yes, Mr. President. First, council should vote on whether to substitute.
Okay, that's the first vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Now the motion.
Okay, now we'll actually vote on the motion. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, sergeants, if you could clear the chambers, we're going to now go into closed session. No, you're disrupting the meeting, Mr. Spindler, and that's not true. You cannot disrupt the meeting. So this is your last warning. Madam Clerk, is there any other business before this?
General public comment.
Okay, then we'll go directly to that. Mr. Williams, Jose Martinez, Mr. Murphy, please come forward for public comment. Mr. I think it's Juarez. Mr. Walsh. Mr. Barajas. Just please come forward. Mr. Previn.
John
Yes,
Walsh
sir.
at HollywoodHighlands.org. Let's get it straight. The poisoning, the well exploded on the 23rd. Nothing. A week ago, you put it on a special agenda, said goddamn nothing about it. It wasn't till 3 weeks after those people were poisoned, when they got on the street and got on television, that Harvey Englander became their champion. All he wants to do is get elected. And I want white people to, I just want the minorities to understand, if it happened in your neighborhood, you would have been on the street in 2 days. But these white Trump shitheads out there were poisoned for 3 fucking weeks before they had the courage to go against SoCal Gas. And you want to suck SoCal Gas's cock? Mr. Bonin, teach him how to suck SoCal Gas.
Come on now, we don't have to. We
really
don't.
good at it.
We you do. You cannot speak about sexual related things. Go on. If you keep Mr. Walsh, if you'd sit down and be quiet. So, Mr. Previn, I think, or Mr. Barajas, come on.
Okay. So on our website, if you log on at LaRouchePAC.com, we have a material on the threat of Barack Obama's thrive for World War III. Obviously, my intention would be to ridicule anybody who supports or tolerates an Obama administration from here on out. So basically what I'm saying is anyone who supports Obama in any capacity, to whatever capacity that God gave to you to support, you are a bastard, a sick son of a bitch, a motherfucker, a piece of shit, a motherfucker again, and a motherfucker again.
Ryan,
so do not tolerate Obama in office, because this United States will not tolerate it under our federal constitution, under any circumstances. Again, anyone who kisses Obama's ass is ridiculed from here on out.
Thank you, Mr. Barajas. You know how to curse too. All right, Mr. Previn, Mr. Marine, come on, let's go. Okay, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Marine, Henry, you want to give up your time, or you want to come forward and talk? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hunt.
These are the effects which you get when you take my job away from me. I've been down here. I've done this once before. The city's got another lawsuit for arresting me at the police commission. I want to give it to you guys. And like I said, I have Sergeant at Arms. Can you come distribute these things out to him? Herb Weston, you should really get that budget and financing. It's not a joke anymore. It's real serious. It cost the city of Los Angeles over $10 million in the last 10 years in lawsuits. It's not a joke. They only got $1, but they paid out $4 million in lawsuits to the attorney's fees. So on that note, I wrote you guys a negotiation letter. Let's get it done, and let's negotiate this out. so I can come in here with a high price
Thank you.
attorney.
Okay, Mr. Marine, Ms. Ramirez, Jacqueline Richardson. Come on, Henry. Move, Mr. Hunt. Henry, you're up.
Yes, as you know, Myers-Miller's-Brown Act authorizes public employees to represent themselves whether they're in a closed shop or open shop or no shop, especially when they're public employers, representatives, and union representatives are taking their money, as shown in MOU 35 and 62, and failing it to use it for the benefit of public employees. Now, my councilman there, he understands that y'all have to make back payments for this money because he ain't fresh off, come on, underneath a rock or somewhere and think you can take money from somebody and don't have to account for it. Like his predecessors, double parking money in union and city bank accounts for the benefit of public employees and failing to account for the principal and interest that it's supposed to generate.
Thank you. So if now I could have, who's Ms. Ramirez? I'm looking for Jacqueline Richardson and Mr. Spindler.
Let's
yes, go ahead.
restore America. Vote for El Jefe, Donald Trump, who is not a racist because he wants to enforce the rule of law and bring the constitutional civility back to America. We need more great patriotic leaders like the Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Arizona Governor Jan Brewer and the Honorable ex-Governor of California, Pete Wilson. God, I wish we had listened to him, for we would not have a high crime rate crisis and nor violent, nosy, jealous, racist, hate-mongering wetbacks and Chango Latino gang-banging filthy pussies and thieves epidemic today. Deport, deport. No amnesty, no asylum. Put these filthy, undesirable pigs on the extinction list. Hasta la vista, cabrones. Stop rewarding and subsidizing these wetbacks and Chango gangbangers. And again, LAPD and Sheriff's Department cannot eradicate these Chango Latino gangs. We now need the United States military with high fire and air power. Let's burro shuttle these Latino pigs and thieves back to where the hell they came from. Bravo to El Donald Trump.
Thank you. Your time is done. If I could, is there Jacqueline Richardson? Okay, Mr. Spindler.
That's right. I just came from the gangster meeting at the DWP. They just stole $265 million of ratepayer money, and they're going to give it to you to divide up in 15 parts. Congratulations, Marchese. That's why you ran for office, to steal $265 million of ratepayer money in violation of the state of California Constitution. $265 million was just embezzled and robbed by the 5 LAPD commissioners. And then Friday, I'm going to go to court for supposedly violating a police commission meeting. I'm the one going to face an arraignment on Friday, and they just stole $265 million. How the fuck can I go to court when they just stole $265 million? You can't steal $265 million from a municipal ratepayer-owned corporation. LADWP, it's thievery. You are guilty of conspiracy.
Thank you. That concludes general public comment. Is in the back, is that Miss Richardson? No, I guess not. Okay, then that concludes. Are you Jacqueline Richardson? Then I'm calling you to come speak. Take your time.
Does Baca want his job back? The Los Angeles Times reported early in 2000s that LAPD Central Division had prostitutes visiting them in business suits. One source said that this is still ongoing. I don't know. In mid-1990s, the mayor of Los Angeles shut down a prostitution ring in San Bernardino City. Many of the businesses now in San Bernardino downtown are all dried up. In early 2000s, a girl from Gardena reported that Rialto Police Department registered prostitutes from Russia. To cut these problems in half, I suggest that the wife serve her husband dinner and stop criticizing him and telling him what to do. They should cut these problems in half.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes general public comment. We do want to say to the public we don't condone a lot of the things that are said here, but we believe that individuals do have an opportunity to speak. But I also want to say some days it's like it's a full moon, and today was one of those full moon days. So Mr. Rue or Mr. Krikorian? Don't
Thank you.
Want to arm wrestle over who's the...
Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding item 47, I'd ask that the City Council receive and file that matter, please.
Okay, Mr. Rue concurs. So then, without objection, that brings us where, Madam Clerk? Is it posting and refer?
Yes, Council's motions for post and referral.
They're posted and referred. That brings us to announcements. Do we have Mr. Bloomingfield?
Yes, the IG-TCT committee that was scheduled to meet 5 minutes ago will meet at 2 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock. So committee hearing will be the same place, but at a different time, 2 o'clock.
Thank you. And what is the name of that committee again? Anyway, Mr. Buscaino. Okay. No more announcements. If everyone could please rise for adjourning motions. If everyone in the chambers could please rise for adjourning motions. Okay, I will first look to Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to adjourn in memory of Maurice Strong, who was a Canadian-born pioneer in climate and environmental programs that just died at age 86. He's best remembered for bringing the world's attention to climate change and for laying the groundwork for the landmark climate summit being held this week. He was the first UN environmental program chief, and his Rio Earth Summit, which he organized in 1992, led to the formation of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. May you rest in peace.
Thank you. Any other adjournings to my right? Now I'm going to go to Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. President and members. I ask the council to adjourn today in the memory of Ms. Virginia Taylor Hughes. She was a longtime community activist in the Council District 8 and was also a staff member for Councilwoman Ruth Galanter back in the 80s when that part of the 8th District was in the 6th District. She was born in 1946 and died this past month, on November 17th. She first started as an activist, being a owner of a small business who was tired of getting robbed, and her neighbors would get burglarized, and so they formed a Merchants for Community Improvement, which worked with the police department to improve patrols and start police patrols in South LA after they had been absent for a long time. She also started the Black History Parade along Western Avenue between Martin Luther King and Slauson Avenue. That went from 1983 and just stopped happening a few years ago. She also founded for young women of color the Slauson Western Youth Enrichment Program, which helped deal with self-esteem and interracial relationships between young people, taking them camping on a number of trips and to sightsee around the state, and as well as college tours. She was honored by the State of California 48th Assembly District, the Rosa Parks Award with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and also she got the Ambassador of Goodwill Award from the African Focus Group in 2008. Her services will be this Friday at 10:30 at Faithful Central Bible Church.
And Miss, if it's okay with you, can both of us sign that? I had the pleasure to work with her when she was a deputy for Council Member Galanter. I was a deputy for Nate Holden, and I hadn't heard that, so I would like to do that. I'm continuing to look on my left side. Any other adjourning motions? Then this meeting is adjourned.